Having grown up on a farm, I realized that if I wanted to see more of the world than a trip to the local tractor parts supply store, I was going to have to join the military. Although we weren't dirt poor, we weren't lower middle class either. My mother made my clothes, and we never took vacations. Manually loading and stacking bales of hay, straw, and alfalfa occupied most of my day from age 7 on up. When I graduated high school, against our parents' wishes, my best friend and I enlisted and spent the next 4 years in the Marines, ORA. We spent time at 2 bases stateside but ended up being stationed in South Korea and Japan. Because of the cultural differences, we were encouraged to spend most of our leave time at specific American-friendly bars and entertainment. My friend, Hal, and I visited as many tourist attractions as possible, knowing we'd never have another opportunity to see this part of the world again. I spent half of my money on the ladies and tried to send the other half back home to help out. Our time in country was not all that remarkable. We spent most of our time on sentry duty. We did not completely avoid the fairer sex. Hal had to be treated for the claps several times. I opted for the safer route of condoms and was spared STDs. We engaged in all of the extracurricular activities that interested us, including the many varied contests that my fellow Marines could dream up. By the time we were honorably discharged, everyone called me Army, even though my name is Calvin Bostic. When we returned home, Hal continued calling me Army, and it stuck. The locals picked up on the moniker, thinking it to be a slight to my service in the Marines. I never corrected them. In the service, I learned to ignore slights. It took a lot to get me angry. Belford, our farming town, while not that small, didn't afford many employment opportunities outside of farming or construction for anybody with less than a college education. Of course, we had the typical grocery and dry goods stores, but we weren't large enough to interest one of the big box stores. We surprisingly had 2 banks and several fast food places. I didn't want to live far from my mom and pop. While they were not that old, I wanted to be around to help them out when they needed. Of course, they wanted me to seek a better life. I'd seen the world and wanted to settle down. Since I grew up in farming, I decided to opt for construction. I was a laborer and worked hard loading and unloading everything from bricks, blocks, sheetrock, trusses, and of course, stud lumber. I was sent to deliver and hand stack loads in locations where fork trucks couldn't negotiate. No stranger to hard work, I could go all day and never wear out. Sure, I'd fade at the end of the day, but after I took a shower, I'd have all the energy in the world to go out and throw back a few beers with my friends. When I first met Stacy at Higgins' restaurant, it was love at first sight. She was the sexiest looking girl I'd ever seen, and I'd seen my fair share. I must have asked her out 30 times before she finally said yes. I think she did it to get me to stop asking. We hit it off famously. We got along like 2 peas in a pod. 2 more compatible people were unimaginable. She had it all: looks, personality, humor, and boy did she have curves in the right places and knew how to use them. After 9 months of steady dating, I popped the question. We were married 6 months later. Stacy and I were both 24 and couldn't be happier. She'd grown up in a neighboring town, so had roots in the area. We talked about starting a family, but we agreed we needed to save up a nest egg of enough money to afford a child without putting an excessive strain on our limited incomes. My dad advised me to grow a bigger paycheck before I had kids and pushed me to seek better job opportunities. He was right, we could not really afford kids. By the time we paid our apartment rent and met our monthly expenses, we were nearly tapped out. We basically lived hand to mouth, and after 2 years of marriage barely had enough in the bank to buy a couple cheap tires for my car. Somerville, the 3rd largest city in our state, was 40 miles away from our Belford hometown. Kensington is a growing bedroom community in which many Somerville commuters lived. Kensington, only 22 miles away from Belford, was always adding new businesses to serve the growing needs of its residents. One such establishment was Stokes Fitness Palace, a co-ed gym that catered to the fitness of both men and women. Army, you aren't going to believe the exciting news I heard today. Stacy announced one afternoon. Oh, are they having another sale at the dollar store? I joked. No, silly. My friend, Brenda, had lunch at the restaurant today, and she told me about a new fitness gym opening over in Kensington. They're interviewing potential hires for the next week or so. She was told the starting pay for the new recruits. Honey, if they hire me, I'll be making about 30% more than what I bring home in wages and tips from the restaurant. I could make close to what you bring home. Isn't that wonderful? She declared. We can start setting money aside for our family. I want us to finally have that baby we've planned on for so long. I hear what you're saying, but what do you know about fitness and gyms? Wouldn't you need some kind of degree or something? I don't know what their requirements are for any of these positions, and I'll never know unless I go for an interview. Connie said she'd come in early and cover for me so I can go to Stokes Fitness Palace for an interview, and I'll stay over a couple of hours and cover for her this evening. Brenda said she heard that they take walk-ins, no appointments necessary. Honey, I don't suppose it would hurt to find out what kind of job opportunities they're offering, and there aren't many other prospects here in Belford. If you were to get the job, you'd have to commute the distance every workday. I wouldn't get my hopes up, but sure, give it a try. After work the next day, you aren't going to believe this, Army, but they offered me a job at Stokes Fitness Palace in Kensington that you told me about? Yes, they're going to start me at 25% more than I'm making now, and after a 2-week performance evaluation, they'll up it to 30% more, just as Brenda said. That almost sounds too good to be true. What is it exactly that you'll be doing for them, Stacy? That's the best part, Army. They have their own in-house on-the-job training program. They'll teach me about all of their machines and strength training equipment. Once I'm up to speed, they'll make me a floor manager. I'll help anyone inexperienced with the equipment. They said that, over time, if I apply myself, I could become a trainer, which could add another 20% to my salary. Isn't that wonderful? Stacy excitedly declared. When do they want you to start? I told them I'd need to give at least a 1-week notice at the restaurant. I don't want to leave them in a bind. They said that would be fine with them. Are you still okay with this, Army? It looks like we'll be able to start setting more money aside now to grow our family. As soon as you think we can afford it. I want to have your baby, honey, Stacy cooed. Nothing would please me more, I assured her. At first, Stacy wore conservative attire to her new job, conventional pants with colorful button tops. After a month, she purchased 5 pairs of yoga pants with matching halter tops. She said her attire needed to be reflective of the gym atmosphere. I could understand that. 3 months later, she began wearing spandex short shorts. I didn't like that. She just blew me off as being overprotective and showed me pictures taken in the gym proving that all of the other girls were dressing just like her. She even started receiving cash tips from some of the guys that she helped in various ways. To calm my fears, I took off work early one day and dropped by Stokes Fitness Palace unannounced. I watched her closely for a couple of minutes before she noticed me and rushed over to greet me. She was not doing anything inappropriate or flirtatious that would cause me to worry. Hi, baby. What are you doing here? She enthused. I just wanted to see where my wife works. This is a very nice facility. I'm impressed. I'm tickled that you stopped by, Army. Come on, let me introduce you to my supervisor, she insisted. She walked me over to a hulk of a man. Gerald, this is my husband, Calvin Bostic. Everybody calls him Army. Army, this is Gerald Jenkins. Everybody calls him Goliath for obvious reasons. As we shook hands, Goliath tried to intimidate me with his grip without being overtly obvious. He was strong as an ox, but I didn't flinch. He was easily 6 feet 2 inches, 188 centimeters, to my 5 feet 9 inches, 175 centimeters. I knew my weight to be 175 stocky pounds, 80 kilograms, and estimated his to be at least 245 pounds, 111 kilograms, of lean muscle mass. He was ripped, an obvious bodybuilder, a perfect advertisement for the fitness center. We both smiled effusively for Stacy's sake. Someone called him away, so Stacy gave me the grand tour and explained much of their operations. I did see 2 other female co-workers who were dressed similarly to her. I'm glad I stopped by. It eased my mind considerably. Not long after that encounter, Stacy began coming home with an elevated libido. We were having wild sex nearly every night. She attributed her augmented appetite for sex to her workouts, fitness, and healthier eating habits which she pushed on me. She'd lost some fat and replaced it with muscle. Not wanting to look a gift horse in the mouth, I accepted her new energy with equal enthusiasm, which typically left us breathless after every coupling. She never mentioned any of the guys she worked with, not even Goliath, which I took as a good sign. Then came the day that changed our lives forever. Friday night, Stacy brought up a change in her schedule. Honey, I know I don't usually work weekends, but they're having a big promotion going on at the gym tomorrow, and they need all hands on deck. There's a very special event taking place at 7 p.m. It's a special function not open to the general public, but they want all spouses to be present. I want to show you off to everyone as my husband. Will you make it a special point to be there? Please? Pretty please? She asked, batting her eyes at me in her coquettish manner. What kind of promotion, Stacy? You know I'm not going to sign up for one of their programs. I get plenty of exercise making deliveries. I promise, they're not going to try to sign you up for anything. Well, what is it then? Are you getting an award or something? Could be, she said evasively. After this promotional event, we may be able to start growing our family sooner rather than later. You'll just have to come to find out. I'm not at liberty to say anything more. Well, I reckon I'll be there then, and see what the big deal is that you're talking about. That night, she wore us both out so exhaustively I could hardly move. She had already left when I woke up Saturday morning. I called my buddy Hal and spent a chunk of the day helping him work on his car. He was always doing something to it to sport it up a bit or increase the horsepower. I told him about my conversation with Stacy about tonight's mysterious event. I shared with him that although I couldn't put my finger on anything specific, my spidey senses were tingling. "Hey man," Hal began. "Why don't I come with you tonight to have your back if you have any concerns? And on top of that, come on in the house and let me show you the gadget I won in a poker game a couple of weeks ago. It's a compact ink pen voice recorder. It records up to 70 hours of audio on a single charge. It has a built-in USB adapter to download the recordings. A twist on the top turns it on. It writes perfectly as a pen so no one is the wiser. A buddy of mine who lost it to me bought it to record his girlfriend's voice for some reason. I've tested it. It picks up clear audio from about 40 feet away. Wow, this is like a spy gadget. I don't think it will be needed, but it won't hurt to have it on me just in case. Thanks, Hal." It was a cool spring evening, so I wore my light windbreaker with zippered pockets. I put the pin in an inside breast pocket. The two of us showed up at the Stokes Fitness Palace a few minutes before 7. I made sure to twist the top of the pin as I'd practiced earlier. A burly man came to the door asking for ID. I showed him my driver's license, and he nodded his approval. When Hal moved to enter with me, the guy stopped him and said, "Sorry, bud. This is a closed event and you're not invited, only Mr. Bostic." I looked the guy in the eye and said, "No problem. Come on, Hal, let's go. If you can't get in, then I won't go either. Hey, bud, be sure and tell Stacy Bostic that her husband was tried." As we started walking back to Hal's car, "Don't leave, sir. You're a VIP guest." "All right, we'll let your friend in. Come on. But I'll need to collect your cell phones before you enter." As I said, this is a private event and no recordings or photos are allowed. We reluctantly handed him our phones, and he slid them into individual manila envelopes and marked them with our names. They'll be returned to you upon leaving the premises. For your security and protection, these envelopes will remain sealed until they're returned. He placed our phones in one of several bins containing similar envelopes. He locked the door behind us as we walked into the main gym. We saw 2 large tables with peg handles on top in the center of the gym with a large group of men standing around, working out, or warming up for something. Our escort asked Hal to wait in the gym while he conducted me to an office where Stacy was waiting. I nodded to Hal that I was okay. He relaxed and started wandering around the gym. We entered an office and the door was closed behind us. I saw Gerald Goliath Jenkins seated at a table across from me. Stacy was at his side wearing a dark robe of some kind. 5 other guys suddenly appeared from one side, as if they'd been waiting for my appearance. "Hey, Stacy, what's going on? Why are you in a robe and not your regular clothes?" I asked. Stacy looked nervously over at Goliath after my question, and he nodded at her before commanding, "Show him." Stacy, almost shaking, demanded, "Do you swear he won't remember a thing?" "Not a single thing." "I swear it on my life, sweet pea. Go ahead and show him." Stacy removed her robe, leaving her wearing the most nothing bikini bathing suit I had ever seen in my life. There were 3 postage stamp-sized pieces of fabric barely clinging to her body by thin spaghetti straps. There was virtually nothing left to the imagination. "Stacy, I asked you to tell me what's going on. Why are you nearly naked in this room in front of all these men? I don't see any other women around. Have you been cheating on me? Is this your way of rubbing it in my face?" I heatedly asked. "Army, it's not what you think." "Well, it sort of is, but it's not really. Honey, it's wonderful. After tonight, we'll finally have plenty of money to get started on our family. We won't have to wait any longer to begin making babies. That's what this is all about, really. I'm doing this for us." "What are you talking about, Stacy? I'm not comfortable with this at all. Put your clothes back on and let's leave this place right now. Come on." As I reached to take her hand, Goliath stood up and moved in front of her. "I'm afraid I can't allow that, Army. Stacy's here for the night. You'll get her back safe and sound tomorrow, but tonight she belongs here with me, and there's nothing you can do to stop it," he announced haughtily. "The hell I can't." But as I moved forward, the 5 guys that were behind me quickly surrounded me and told me to back off. "Don't hurt him," Stacy shouted. "If so much as a hair on his head is harmed, then the deal is off." Goliath acknowledged her remark and nodded at the boys to be careful with me. "Why don't I bring you up to speed, Army? What did you do in the Army anyway?" "You can bring me up to speed after these guys back away. If they don't, I am liable to go apeshit, and then they will have to seriously hurt me or even kill me to subdue me. I hope you can live with that, Stacy. I hope you can look my folks in the eye and know you are responsible for my death." Stacy gasped and began to say something, but quieted when Goliath waved his goons off. They stepped back. "I was never in the army. I served in the Marines. I was nicknamed Army." "Why the hell did they do that? Did your buddies think you weren't good enough for the Marines?" He chuckled. "Somebody better tell me what's going on here, or there's going to be hell to pay," I offered, a little more loudly than would be considered polite. I was seriously getting upset. Okay, Army, I hear you. Well, here's the deal. I like your little wife Stacy here quite a bit. I've been flirting heavily with her for a good while trying to sleep with her, but she just won't give it up. We've done a lot of passionate kissing and making out. I know I sent her home excited as hell on many occasions, but she refused to have sex with me. I've talked to her extensively about what it would take. When she shared with me that you two were trying to build a nest egg to grow your family, I gave it some thought and came up with an idea. I told her I could put out some feelers for an arm wrestling contest. If I could get enough interest, she could split the pot with the winner if the winner was also guaranteed a full night of passion with her. She rejected the idea at first, but over time began asking me questions about the amount of money I was talking about and how many contestants there might be. I knew I had her hooked then. I just had to develop the specifics of my plan. Needless to say, my earlier concern ramped up into full-blown anger. I was a half inch from going off, goons be damned. I barely held my cool. I remembered the pin in my pocket and settled down to let this guy talk. Goliath continued. I knew she was just as hot for me as I was for her. I told her that if she worked with me, she might walk away with $20,000 and get to share a night of uninhibited sex with me. She asked me how we could do that. I asked her to make a nude video at home alone that I could show to potential contestants to garner their interest in competing both for the cash prize and a night with her. The entry fee was set at $1,000. When enough people showed sufficient interest, I began setting it up. But there was still one problem. The cheating angle bothered her too much, so I had another brainstorm. I asked her, what if you, Army, had the opportunity to compete as well? You wouldn't even have to go through all the eliminations. You'd arm wrestle the top contestant for the championship. If you miraculously won, then she wouldn't be called upon to provide any service beyond a little flirting, and you too would walk away with all of the money. The slim potential that you could win was enough to convince her to consider it. I tried to control my breathing. I'd already decided if the goons made another move to grab me, I was going to go off. Kicking, punching, elbowing, headbutting, whatever it took. Nothing was off the table, not even biting. I was not going to fight fair, and while they might take me down, at least they'd get injured in the process. I said nothing. Goliath took a sip of water and continued. She still had the sticking point that you would never allow such a thing to take place without it adversely affecting your marriage, perhaps even ending it. The girl loves you. I'll give her that. So I came up with a solution for that too. After you lose and the contest is over, these 5 boys here will bring you back to this office and get you stone drunk. Then they'll give you a dose of ketamine, a narcotic used by veterinarians as anesthesia for horses and other animals. People found that it works great as a date assault narcotic because not only does it erase your memory for about 24 hours, but it also quickly metabolizes in the body and can be difficult to detect with narcotic tests. That's why I can tell you everything honestly with impunity, because you won't remember a single word spoken to you tonight. Nothing, nada, zip. So, there are 40 men signed up to compete for the cash prize and a night with your wife. I'm the strongest man in this building by far. I've let them all think they have a fair chance at winning, but none of them have a prayer. I'm going to win the 40 grand, split it with Stacy, and screw her every which way all night long while you're getting drunk and forgetful. You'll be taken home tomorrow to sleep it of, and I'll drop your wife off at your home after I simply can't get it up another time. When you eventually wake up, she'll tell you how she won $20,000 in a contest, and you 2 lovebirds can start making babies to your heart's delight. You won't remember a thing. She'll have her money, and I'll have done my best to have sex all night long. You just made a big mistake, Gerald, I cajoled. Oh yeah? What's that? He smirked. First off, you just told these 5 goons your plan. They do all the work keeping me occupied and then drugging me while you reap all the benefit. Why would they have any interest in detaining me now? I inquired. It's a fair question, he surmised. These 5 know better than anyone else that they stand no chance against me, so they did not even enter. They've already been paid in full in advance by your lovely wife here to look after you and make sure everything goes according to plan, so they will not be competing tonight. Stacy paid them? I puzzled. That's right, chump, the guy to my immediate left blurted. She gave all 5 of us BJs earlier today. I truly envy you, Army. Stacy gave me a wan smile as I asked, "Is that true? Did you give all 5 of these guys before I arrived?" She had the good sense to look down at the floor rather than lie to me. "Okay, then your second mistake is, are they willing to kill me? Because there is no way they are gonna bring me back into this office without at least beating me unconscious or killing me." Stacy will lose some of her $20,000 304 money for my reconstructive surgery. You know, teeth implants, broken bones, internal injuries. Stacy, just a trip to the emergency room starts at $1,000. Our deductible is $12,000. So you'd give up more than half your money, unless of course these boys finish the job and kill me. And I don't see them willing to do that. Not for a BJ anyway. Plus they'd have to worry about one of the other guys talking. The third issue is I thought ketamine has to be administered intravenously. You think I am gonna wake up to find an injection site and not suspect foul play? I asked. And how about overdosing like that kid who died when the cops held him down and gave him a dose? Okay, it obviously looks like Stacy can live with my death. Stacy had the grace to cringe. One of the goons said, "I know what I am doing. Stacy told me your weight, and I have already pulled up the right dose to knock you out and make you forget everything. Sorry to disappoint you fellows, but I have zero interest in competing in any event or winning anything, especially anything to do with her. If she is willing to even consider this crap and 304 herself, you can have her. Do whatever you want with her." "I'm out of here," I seethed. "I'm afraid we can't let you do that, Army," Goliath repeated. "A deal's a deal. I gave your wife my word that you would arm wrestle the winner of tonight's contest for the money and her honor. Then I promised her you'd have no memories of anything said and done tonight." "What honor?" "She has none, obviously. I no longer care who she screws, or for how long. Right now, I want nothing more than to divorce the backstabbing which as soon as possible." Stacy began sobbing at my harsh language and sentiments. "And like I said, I am not coming back in here, so kill me now. Pay no attention to anything he says, Stacy. Like I told you, he'll have no recollection tomorrow. He'll be your ever-loving hubby once again. You have my word," Goliath reassured her. Stacy smiled weakly at his encouragement in the wake of my stinging threat to divorce her. "I'll tell you what, I'll compete. Just so long as you know you'll have to kill me after." I said, "Enough chit-chat. Let's get out there and get things started, shall we?" Goliath insisted, scoffing at my threats. The group of 5 marched me out into the gym. When the contestants saw my wife's virtually nude body, they went wild with applause and catcalls. I looked around and couldn't see my friend, Hal. "Where is he?" I queried. "Your friend?" He decided not to hang around after all. We didn't want to force him to stay, so we let him leave. "Sorry," one of the 5 informed me. I knew Hal hadn't left of his own free will. They coerced him to leave. I also knew he wouldn't abandon me and must be parked somewhere nearby. The problem was, I had no way to signal him I needed help. Goliath was wearing a light jacket to conceal his overabundant musculature. He didn't want to overtly intimidate any of the contestants and erase their hopes of pulling a rabbit out of a hat. Obviously, most were not local and did not know him. He began to address the crowd. "All right, everybody, this is what we've all been waiting for. All 40 of us have contributed our $1,000 entry fee and signed the rules, disclaimers, and waiver sheet. Stokes Fitness Palace will be held harmless in the event of any injuries related to this contest. This is a double elimination competition. If you lose once, you still have another chance to compete and win the tournament. The best 2 out of 3 wins. If you have 2 losses, you're out. Now our girl, Stacy here, wants a fair and square contest. She insisted that her husband, Army, also be given a shot at defending her virtue. He will wait and wrestle the number 1 contender. When he loses, the winner takes all. Does everyone understand and agree?" All of the men nodded acknowledgement. "Excellent," he continued. "The winner will receive the title trophy and the $20,000 bounty. Our girl, Stacy, here will receive 20 grand of pot regardless of who wins, and the winner gets an all-night love fest with her. Sex any way you want, and until you can't handle anymore. You've all seen her video. Some lucky guy is going to be in for the night of his life. I heard that's a lot of money for one night of sex, but she looks like she is worth every penny." Everyone was rip-roaring and yelling their enthusiasm for the contest, while Stacy wiggled and writhed her body seductively for their benefit. "We have 2 very distinguished gentlemen with us here tonight. Mr. Justin Albright and Mr. Kevin Saunders are sanctioned referees for the World Arm Wrestling Federation, and they are going to officiate every contest tonight. They are impartial and their word is final, not to be questioned. We have 2 arm wrestling tables with hand pegs that will be running simultaneously to speed things along. The hand pegs are there to give you more power and leverage. 2 matches at a time will allow each man here a fair chance to win. We have a computer random name generator to pair up and set the first 20 matches. All results will be recorded, and the computer will then create the second set of pairings and so forth and so on until we get down to the final 2. If you've been eliminated from the competition, you are encouraged to stay and root for your buddies during their matches. The 2 arm wrestling tables were identical and were designed for standing matches, not seated. They had padded elbow pads where each competitor places their elbow down to wrestle to avoid discomfort and to prevent injury. The touch pads are the raised pads on opposite sides of the table that each respective competitor is trying to push his opponent's hand onto. A projector cast the paired names up on a screen from an overhead projector. The order was easily discernible and clear for all participants involved. The 2 tables were approximately 10 feet, 3 meters, apart. Stacy stood between the tables and made a last-minute announcement. "Hey fellas, I wish each and every one of you the best of luck tonight. And just to prove I mean business, right before you compete, if you need a little extra encouragement, each of you is free to touch my body for good luck," she giggled. "I have something to say," I yelled loudly, interrupting her. "I am due to be murdered after this event tonight." There were gasps from the crowd. "Take note of these 5 guys here." I pointed out the 5 goons. "They are assigned to keep me from leaving before the event is over and kill me later if I do not win. I am counting on there being some honorable men here tonight. I just hope there are enough to make sure I make it out the door alive. Stacy here is an adult and can do what she wants. If she wants to give her body up to the winner, and for the cash, then that is on her. For myself, I hope to compete, and if I win, leave with my winnings and my wife. If I don't, at least leave with my life. I'll be right here in the middle of y'all. You will be able to see me being forced out or into some dark corner and subdued." I got some very intent looks from the judges. As I looked around, several men seemed shaken. "Nobody is getting killed here tonight," Goliath yelled, glaring at me. "Of course Mr. Bostic, or Army, as he is called, will walk out the front door when the event is over. Now let's get busy and take on Stacy's offer to scope her out, feel her. I know from personal examination, she is fantastic," he said. The guys hooped and hollered some more. The first 4 contestants took her up on her offer, each feeling and touching her before they set themselves to the match. The referees repeated all of the rules for each contest to ensure compliance. When they asked, "Ready?" each man nodded his acknowledgement. When they said, "Go," it was on. You never heard such moans and groans as each man gave his all to win over each opponent. Everyone who was not competing at the time was cheering on those who were. It was an enthusiastic melee. I sat right in the middle of the crowd and watched my wife in disgust as she freely let other men touch her body. Body that I had mistakenly believed to be mine and mine alone. There was a cauldron boiling deep in my soul over her cheating and humiliation at her brazen shamelessness. With 2 matches taking place simultaneously in under 3 minutes, the first round was completed in under 30 minutes. The second round, which allowed double elimination, took another half hour. So after the first hour, half of the contestants had been eliminated. The remaining 20 were soon matched up by the computer in random pairings. Every single man took advantage of it. It was sickening to watch her like this. She, however, seemed to love the attention and encouraged each man to help himself. Occasionally, she would look my way and smile. Stacy kept looking my way as if urging me to join the fray, but every time she beckoned me, I simply turned my head to the side, ignoring her. I could tell she was excited and not concerned in the least, as I was not going to remember a thing. After 5 more matches took place over the next 15 minutes, there were 10 winners and losers. Another quarter hour narrowed the field down to only 10 final contestants, as an hour and a half had expired by this time. Testosterone flooded the room, fueled by machismo, prize money, and a highly anticipated night of passion with my wife. The atmosphere was palpable. One of the goons leaned close. "You just had to run your mouth, didn't you, a-hole? Well, I am personally gonna beat the shit out of you. When you wake up, we'll tell you you fell down the steps." The next 30 minutes whittled down the contestants to the semi-final pairing. Of course, all contestants kissed and touched Stacy, helping themselves to a feel before their turn at the table. Ultimately, it was Goliath versus another heavily muscled man for the semi-final match. Goliath handily won the set, leaving him to be the one I would face, exactly as he had predicted. The referees advised Goliath that he could take 15 minutes to rest and recover before having to face off with me in the final match. He laughed them off, indicating that I was an insignificant gnat to him, and he required no recovery time to face me. His victory was a given. I shrugged off my windbreaker and tied it tightly around my waist. I did not want to risk losing it. I was escorted to the table for the final event. The referees stood ready to officiate the final match of the night, to declare a clear winner. As I reluctantly stood there across the table from this behemoth of a man, it was evident that not a single man in the room gave me any chance whatsoever to come out on top. They were smirking and chuckling in acknowledgement that Stacy was going to be Goliath's prize, and heard a few say they envied him his night with the hot fox. As I stood before the table, the room finally quietened down and I began to speak. "Where is the 40 grand in prize money? I want to see it," I asked. "Win or lose, I wanted no reason to go near that office again." "Why do you want to see it, little man? You don't have a chance in hell at winning it anyway," Goliath bragged. "That may be so," I affirmed. "However, everyone here has been touching my wife for inspiration before their match. I simply want to see the money for mine. That doesn't violate any rules, does it?" I queried. "Besides, I want to make sure I get it if I win." That received loud laughter. I smiled. "I guess not, little man." He nodded at one of the 5 who disappeared into the office to retrieve the locked box holding the cash. He opened it so I could see. So far, so good. "Could one of the referees quickly count it to ensure it's all there?" Goliath nodded again, beginning to get exasperated. "Mr. Albright, would you please do the honors?" Referee Justin Albright picked it up, quickly sorted, and confirmed the total of $40,000. "Sir," I requested, "if you don't mind, I'd like it if you hold on to that until the end of the finals so it can be awarded immediately. I'd like for you to also guarantee my safety. Like I told everybody before, my life is in danger and I doubt I'll be allowed to leave the building whether I win or lose." Justin looked at Goliath, who said, "Go ahead, Mr. Albright. Your reputation is impeccable. We trust you completely," whereupon Justin held the 2-inch thick neat stack of $400, $100 bills close to his body for security. "Satisfied, Army?" Goliath smirked. "You will be allowed to leave, of course. Nobody here will stop you." His expression told me otherwise. I suspected at least 2 and possibly 3 of the goons had been sent outside to wait for me. "Completely," I verified. "I'm only competing for a chance at the money. I have no interest in that which anymore. She's great at sex, but who would want to live with a woman with no morals? I'm really tempted to leave her here, win or lose." Stacy glared at me. "Good. Enough delay. Let's get this nothing of a match over with so I can start screwing your wife. Come here, sweetheart. You are going to be all mine in just a few minutes," he boasted. Stacy came over to him and gave him the most passionate French kiss I'd ever seen her deliver. I had never been so enraged and humiliated in all my life. Then I felt an icy cold sweep over me. After he had his fill of Stacy's temptations, she moved toward me to inspire me in the same way. I stopped her dead in her tracks. In a clear voice, I admonished, "Don't ever touch me again, Stacy. You heard what I said earlier. I don't want a woman with no morals. Maybe, tomorrow, I won't remember anything that happened tonight because I will be dead or beaten to a pulp by your lover's boys. But I hope you never forget what I'm about to say for the rest of your life. 20 grand for a night of sex with you might make you an expensive 304, but it makes you a 304 nonetheless. You're nothing more than a cheating witch and, if I had my way, I'd divorce your butt right here and now. Get your skanky butt behind me so I don't have to look at you. Just the sight of you makes me want to vomit all over your lover boy here." Stacy began sobbing loudly at my vehement vitriol. I heard gasps from the crowd. Both referees scowled. I could not tell if they did not like my manners or realized there was something nefarious going on. I hoped they realized my participation was involuntary. I was tempted to just ask somebody to call the police and let Goliath execute whatever plan he had to shut me up in front of more than 40 witnesses. That could wait. As Stacy moved behind me in compliance with my request, Goliath defended his prize for the night. "Just who the hell do you think you are? You can't talk to her like that," he commanded. "She has been my wife for the last few years, but if I have the physical and mental capacity to correct that mistake when I leave this building, she won't be my wife much longer. She sure as hell won't be bearing any of my children," I said. I had a sudden thought as the picture was becoming clearer. "Enough of your big talk, little man. Put your arm up here, and I'll put you in your place and shut that mouth of yours," Goliath commanded. Everyone effusively cheered Goliath's bravado, knowing he would deliver on that promise. Knowing I had no other choice, I put my comparatively small arm up on the table against the mass of muscle Goliath presented me. We locked hands tightly, making sure there would be no slips or tricks. Referee Kevin Saunders revisited the rules one last time before signaling the start. I heard Stacy behind me admonish Goliath not to hurt me. If he had his way, I'm sure he would have broken my arm or even rip it off. I was not sure if she meant killing me like I told every person there he intended, or physical injury during the actual contest. I knew full well she wanted me to be subdued and forced to drink that ketamine solution. I really did not care, nor did I have time to think about it. I was pushing for all I was worth. Our hands didn't budge. It was as if I was pushing against a piece of steel. He asked a friend to call 30 seconds, which seemed an interminable time. Then he loudly boasted, "I'm going to give you an education in muscle therapy, little man." He grinned and began pressing my hand inexorably toward the table. My hand and wrist trembled like a leaf in his grip as I resisted the downward arc with all my might. It wasn't enough. As if in slow motion, my wrist hit the padded bar as the referee called the match in Goliath's favor. The room erupted in thunderous applause at his success against the mouthy husband. I stepped away from the table for a few seconds as I did some deep breathing and swung my arms as I shook off the loss. "Best 2 out of 3, I reminded, as I immediately placed my arm back on the table. Goliath laughed in my face. "You obviously don't know shit about muscles, little man. Quick-performing muscles are anaerobic. All the deep breathing in the world won't save you from certain defeat. By the time I'm through screwing your wife all night, I promise you she'll earn every penny of that 20,000. The room once again erupted in roaring approval of Goliath's claim. His statements only served to anger me more. I tried to quell that anger and divert it. Kevin provided instructions again and signaled us to begin. Goliath had a huge smile on his face. Once again, I was pressing against him for all I was worth. I used the peg and swiveled my hips for maximum leverage against him. After about 10 seconds, he began his press down to secure his final victory. My hand shook like a leaf once more, trembling as every ounce of adrenaline fueled my strength. He had forced me about a quarter of the way down when I felt something. It was a strange sensation. It was as if he had reached the end of his tether. My arm stopped shaking and locked solidly onto its mission. I groaned out loud as I gave it my all. I was huffing and puffing like a runner during a marathon. Then it happened. His hand gave quarter as my stamina relentlessly pressed against his limited reserve. An unbelieving crowd grew silent as they watched me press Goliath hand down toward his side of the table. I could almost feel the gas emptying out of his tank as he became weaker against the endurance my arm provided. When the referee slapped his hand acknowledging the pin, you could have heard a pin drop on the floor. The astonishment was unparalleled. He jumped back from the table in disbelief. "No," he shouted. "There's no way in hell he beat me. That was just a fluke. You're going down, boy. I'm going to squash you like a bug. No more playing around. Let's do this," he ordered. He tossed his jacket aside and took both hands to rip his t-shirt. His musculature gleamed in the light as all the facets of his ripped abs and shoulder muscles became the envy of every man in the room. Well, every man perhaps but me. Goliath drew his arms back like the Incredible Hulk and growled out his rage at the embarrassing loss. I loved watching him burn his energy as he raged. He slammed his elbow solidly down on the table, calling me out for the final match. One of us was about to suffer his second loss and ultimate defeat. He was bound and determined for it to be me. I ignored his antics. I had seen this kind of bluster many times before. Again, I performed my deep breathing exercises to enrich the oxygen levels in my blood before accepting the big man's challenge. I wanted this next match sooner rather than later before allowing him the opportunity to rebuild his reserve. Kevin performed his professional duties and called the start. I knew Goliath's anger would compel him to give his first effort his all to prevent a recurrence of my aberrant victory. He roared out in rage, shoving my arm with all of his energy in one go. All I needed to do was keep my arm from going all the way down and wait him out. My wrist was about an inch from being pinned. My hand and wrist again shook like a leaf, trembling against his massive effort. It was all I could do to hold my own against his surge. Then I heard a voice call out from behind me. "Come on, Goliath. Take him down. Show the boy who the real man is here. Finish him so I can get you, screw me. Finish him. Do it now," Stacy urged. The crowd went wild at Stacy's boldness and lust-filled encouragement. But Stacy didn't count on what effect her words would have on me. Enraged, my body was infused again with a fresh hit of adrenaline. Coupled with my regularly paced breathing, I gave a deep groan as a fresh burst of energy overcame the impasse we had been at for nearly 45 seconds. Our hands slowly rose and began moving in the opposite direction. I felt his arm give once more as I solidly locked in my relentless pressure. Our hands went over the top and headed down toward putting the back of his hand in the direction it didn't want to go. He growled and twisted his body more, trying to obtain an ounce more torque from his leverage to no avail. With all the reserve I had to give, I shoved his wrist against the padded mat as Kevin announced my victory. I'd done it. I'd defeated Goliath 2 times out of 3. It was over at last. Silence pervaded as Goliath asked in astonishment, "How? How in the hell did you do that? I've never lost to anyone as small as you." "I've got to know," he pleaded. "I'll answer your question if you give me your word on 2 conditions," I offered. "Name it," he conceded. "Number 1. I'm handed the winnings before I give my answer, the entire 40 grand. Secondly, I want to walk out of here after my explanation under my own steam with no one trying to stop me. Do I have your word?" I stipulated. I wanted to give one more plea to the crowd. Maybe if I got hurt later tonight, somebody would come forward. Goliath nodded his assent. "Go ahead and hand over the money, Justin." I untied my windbreaker and put it on. Justin handed me the cash, which I quickly zipped into the windbreaker pockets. I want everyone here to know that Mr. Bostic has won this contest fair and square. Whether we like it or not, he is not to be touched. After he provides his explanation, he will be free to leave here unhampered, Goliath asserted. Stacy just stood there in shocked silence. I knew the man was lying. Only one of the 5 goons stood nearby. I suspected the rest were already outside ready to waylay me. Reassured for the moment, I decided to fill everyone in. All my life, I've either worked on a farm or in construction. I have dealt with heavy loads day in and day out. I've done this nearly nonstop all of my life. I may not have developed well-defined bulging muscles in my arms as many others here have, but what muscles I developed gave me endurance and stamina in addition to strength. When I joined the Marines, I was stationed for a couple of years with the 12th Marine Regiment located at Camp Hansen, Okinawa, Japan, and also at Camp Mujuk Marine Corps installation in South Korea just outside Pohang near the eastern shoreline. We had a lot of downtime, but we still had to stay close to base. That being the case, we became very inventive in developing creative ways to pass time with a lot of testosterone pervading the base, much like it is here tonight. Arm wrestling soon became a popular activity to mitigate stress and boredom. We even got a little formal and developed weight classes. The best of each weight class go up against the best of heavier classes to see how far we could go. After a year of arm wrestling, I had never lost a match. One of the base doctors gave me a special examination to determine how I was able to win against opponents nearly twice my size. He surmised that my arms were primarily served by aerobic slow-twitch muscles. People like you, who lift heavy weights for short bursts, develop fast-twitch muscles which give great bursts of energy for short periods. My arms might not be as strong as many others, but I have endurance and stamina. My arms can go all day long as I breathe and provide the oxygen they require. The way I won against you is not by sheer strength, but by outlasting you as your anaerobic muscles began running out of gas. Even though I was in the Marines, they nicknamed me Army for 2 reasons. The word Army means strong, and I also gained notoriety for my arm. So there you have it. I've given you my explanation. Now I'll take my leave and let you guys get on with whatever else it is you wish to do tonight. Where's my cell phone? I asked. I was handed the envelope and tore it open while I scanned the faces around me. They all seemed friendly enough. I quietly began walking toward the door. No one made a move or spoke a word. They were still in shock. Then Stacy called out to me. "Honey, this is wonderful. Hold on and I'll drive us home," she pleaded. "We do need to talk." I heard a murmured, "No shit," come from the side. From another person I heard, "There's not enough talking in the world to smooth over her crap. I'll wait outside. Go put some clothes on before going home," I responded. She loudly asked for me to come with her. She was doing her best to lure me back to the office where I suspected I'd be subdued by one or more of the goons. "No, I need some fresh air. I'll be out front. We can talk there or in the car." She took my remark as a sign of encouragement I'd at least talk. I meant for it to be nothing more than a delaying tactic, to buy me time to get away. She turned to the office to change back into her regular clothing, while I made my way quickly to the front door. "Head on a swivel, Marine," I admonished myself as I peered outside. Seeing no one in the immediate area, I rushed outside to look for Hal. When he saw me emerge, he flashed his lights. I knew he wouldn't leave me in the lurch. He was obviously keeping a sharp lookout, a Marine on sentry. As I was hurrying over to his car, I saw the group of 3 coming out from behind an SUV. They began running in my direction. Marines do one thing all the time, and that is physical fitness training. Every Marine can run, maybe not sprint, but certainly they can outrun most normal civilians. I put the 3 in my dust and jumped into Hal's car. Hal decided not to wait around and peeled away from the scene burning rubber. I had miraculously made my escape with my memories of the night still intact. "I swear I didn't leave you in there alone, Army," Hal informed me quickly. Several big lugs forced me out the door and tossed my cell phone out on the ground. They told me it was a closed event, and I had not been extended a proper invitation. So I waited for you. I'd have stayed all night. Actually, I was getting close to calling the police, but nobody else had emerged, so I figured you were still safe. From the looks of those guys on your heels, it didn't appear to be a friendly withdrawal. So what's the story, and where do you want me to take you? He asked. Take me to my place, I urged. Then I proceeded to explain all of the events of the night. Hal was shocked beyond measure. He expressed his disbelief that Stacy would ever betray me the way she had done, and the drug angle was over the top. He simply shook his head at her egregious cheating. What do you want me to do? Hal asked as he pulled in front of my place. How about parking behind my building? I imagine Stacy will be along shortly. If she comes alone, I'll talk to her as I'm packing. I'm hoping you'll let me hang out at your place for a day or two until I get my bearings. Of course you can. You don't even need to ask, but all I have is a spare couch to offer you in my small apartment. The couch will be perfect, Hal, thanks. If Stacy comes home alone before I leave, I'll confront her tonight and make my intentions clear. If she brings any of the thugs with her, I'll slip out the back door and escape with you to your place. Wait, I have a better idea. I pulled the cash out of my pockets and stuffed it into an empty fast food bag he'd left on the floor of his car. We put the bag under the spare tire in his trunk. I may need backup. You got your weapon? Stupid question. Hal muttered and pulled it from his console. He slipped the holstered pistol inside his waistband and followed me inside. I had 2 suitcases packed and was zipping up the second one when we heard the front door unlock. Hal slipped into the closet as Stacy ran inside to greet me. Thank God you're here. I was worried sick you'd be gone when I arrived. I'm so sorry. We need to talk, the now penitent woman exclaimed. Are you here alone? Or are the 5 you gave BJ earlier somewhere nearby? I demanded. No one else is coming, Army, she winced. It's just you and me. I want to apologize for my behavior earlier tonight. I was caught up in the excitement of it all. I was supposed to rev up the guys and I guess I went overboard. I smiled sardonically. Why rev up the guys? They'd already paid their money. It's not like you were going to get more out of them. I suspected I knew. It was advertising for future events. Future opportunities to have her. Just like that video of her. I wondered if it showed her face. Goliath said he wanted the guys wild for me. He wanted me to be a distraction. Stacy said, did she believe all the guys' bullshit? I wondered. Those arm wrestlers were not going to be distracted by some, which when it came time to compete. I was hoping against hope that you'd win, but I had to play both sides of the fence, so we would end up with at least 20 grand to finance the start of our family. You were amazing. You put Goliath in his place and showed all of them what you're made of. You saved me from a night of debauchery, baby. Now the entire 40,000 is ours, and I'm so happy to be your love slave for the entire night, rather than having to submit to someone else. That was a crock, and she knew it. She was hot for Goliath in his office. That was no act. That's not how I remember it, Stacy. I'm sure I heard you say, come on, Goliath. Take him down. Show the boy who the real man is here. Finish him, so I can get you screw me. Finish him. Do it now. She had the good grace to look at the floor for a moment. As I said, I was playing both sides of the fence. Once we're divorced, you can screw all the men you want with no objection from me, I seethed. Divorce? You can't be serious. All of this tonight was about us getting enough money to kickstart our family. I want to have your babies, Army, not Goliath's and not anyone else's, yours. This was only going to be a one-and-done event, Army. Goliath swore that you had no chance to win it, and that you'd have no memory of any of it by morning. Yes, divorce. The thing is you'd always be a cheating, which whether I remembered or not. And you'd do it again. You cheated on me, Stacy. To make your betrayal worse, you were perfectly fine with having me held against my will and drugged. I told you and everybody there they'd have to kill me before I'd let them drug me to erase my memory, and you still went along with the plan. Actually, that was your main concern. It's still as if you stopped to listen to what you were saying. That I not remember your night of witchy behavior. It's crystal clear to me now that I married the wrong woman. I did not cheat on you. I never had sex with anyone. Do you believe your own bullshit? You let every man there who wanted feel your body. You let Goliath kiss you in front of everyone. You heard him describe how you two have done everything but sex. Do you seriously think I will go along with you that is not cheating? You can call it whatever the hell you want to, Stacy, but I call it cheating. You were unfaithful to our marriage and to your wedding vows. And the only reason you aren't getting screwed by shithead right now is that he lost the arm wrestling match to me. Otherwise, you'd have him screwing you all night long, while the other shitheads you gave BJ would be beating the crap out of me to force drugs into me to make me forget everything. I will never trust you again for the rest of my life. We will never have a child together, even if you had $1 million. Divorce is the only way forward for me. I fumed. She began sobbing uncontrollably. No, you can't mean that. You're just upset right now. I will never give up on us, Army. We belong together forever. Suddenly there was a knock at the front door. Why don't you go see who it is, sweetheart? Stacy sweetly asked, her tears stopping. She was caught up in her role. I don't give a shit who it is, I asserted. I had a pretty good idea who was at the door. It was the 5 thugs coming to finish the job that they had been commissioned to do, and I was not about to get within arm's reach of any of them. That's okay. I'll go see who it is, she sweetly offered. On her way out the bedroom door, she grabbed my cell phone off the charger on the dresser where I'd left it. Move out to where you can hear, I whispered and walked out of the room. Hal was armed and ready to defend my back should it be required. Here he is, boys, Stacy said as she let the 5 goons and Goliath into our front room. I have his cell phone, so I know he is not recording anything. I certainly was. I turned the top of the recording pin as soon as Hal and I heard Stacy unlock the front door earlier. I had recorded everything she'd said, and he can't call for help either. We have him. Now remember, you promised not to hurt him too bad. Just hold him down and get that tube down his throat. Then just enough of a beating to make it look like a real mugging. Stacy said, What is this? Get out of my house, all of you. I exclaimed loudly. I'm sorry, honey, but you have to have your memory erased. I can't have you remember what happened tonight and leaving me. The guys gathering just inside the door grinned. It'll be so much easier if you just drink the stuff Ralph made and go to sleep. You'll wake up and it'll be like it was before. Happily married. Only we'll have $20,000. I promised to give Goliath back the other 20 if he'd help me make you forget even though you won tonight. And if I don't? I growled. Please, honey. They're gonna hurt you. They'll beat you up and force it down your throat. Then they'll stage it to look like a mugging. It'll be the same result in the end, but you'll get hurt. So you plan this out on the way over, I offered. She admitted they had to make a quick plan. Well, you probably didn't plan on this, I said as they stepped a little further into the room and began to spread out. They apparently thought I was about to run, and they wanted to cut me off. I pulled out my Glock 17. Now everybody stay where you are. I'd hate to shoot one of you. Well, I'm not gonna shoot one of you. If I pull the trigger at all, I will shoot 3 of you and the other 3 can decide if they want to hold pressure on the wounds until the ambulance arrives. They froze. They had obviously not anticipated I'd be armed. You wouldn't shoot? Goliath declared with a sneer. You might get 1 or 2 of us, but the others would get you and kill you. Want to bet? I said, with a slight smile. I was a Marine. Actually, I still am. Once a Marine, always a Marine. The one thing the Marines teach beyond physical fitness is small arms. I am rated expert with a pistol. I have no doubt I can put a round into each of your bellies before you get near me. And yes, I will shoot for the belly and not the chest. I want you to hurt, not die. Now sit your asses down. Why should we? This way we have a chance. One of the goons said. You don't have any chance, I said, but I feel threatened by your standing there. Now I would really hate to fire this thing in here. You have no idea how loud it is. 1 round will have our ears ringing, and like I said, I will not shoot 1 round. I might even take you all down. Actually, that is a given. If any one of you makes a single step I consider threatening. If you want to talk, sit. Otherwise, I will simply call the police. The choice is yours. They sat. I told them to slide back all the way on the sofa and 2 easy chairs they occupied as they'd have to shift their weight to get up, and then I'd start shooting. When they were all sitting, I sat myself against the opposite wall on a kitchen chair I'd placed there earlier. I laid my pistol on my right thigh. I let them see my finger just outside the trigger guard. A slight movement and it would be right where it was needed. Look, sweetheart, Stacy said. Give them the 20,000 and take the ketamine stuff. When you wake up tomorrow, we'll be like we were, only 20,000 richer. I asked how she was going to explain the money to me. Easy. You won 40,000 and gave me 20 to hold. You left the gym, but somebody followed you and mugged you. I mean, these guys might have to give you a black eye or bloody lip to make it look right, but you'd wake up my dear, sweet, loving husband, and we'd have our whole lives ahead of us. I began to laugh. The men looked perturbed. Stacy looked puzzled and began to stand. Go over and grab his gun, Goliath urged. He won't hurt you. He loves you. He is half right, I said. I used to love you, but I won't hurt you. Instead, I will shoot 3 of these idiots as soon as you stand up. I raised the gun off my knee where it had rested. She looked at me, shocked, and sat back down. I laughed a few seconds ago at how really stupid you are. You cannot think outside of a paper bag, I said. Let's go back to earlier this evening. You listened to Numbnuts here. I pointed to Goliath. Tell you he'd leave me with no memory. You'd come home well screwed with $20,000 and say you won a contest tonight and I'd buy it. Seriously? You don't think I'd check out any contest that paid that much, especially if I could not remember a thing? But you bought his bullshit, hook, line, and sinker. Oh, they'd make sure my memory was wiped after the event, even if they had to beat my butt enough to force it down my throat. They could not do it before the contest. They had to keep you happy and acting like a witch until the whole show ended. That was the only reason they kept me on my feet, and it frosted their cookies I dared tell everybody I was in danger. They may have told you otherwise, but you were never going to see a dime of that money. I was going to be taken away and fed the drugs like they said. You were going to get screwed. And I'll bet not just by Goliath, but by every one of these guys. They'd take videos and tell you if you said a word later, they'd show me the video of you happily screwing. They were planning to make you their 304. Anytime any of these guys showed up at the gym, they'd take you in the back and screw you. It was a total blackmail scheme. They want you as their 304. You were never going to get that prize money. Stacy shook her head in denial and began to tell me I was wrong. And they were happy with the BJs they got. Just think about a couple things. I said, first you made a video of your to send around to churn up interest. By the way, I hope your face was not seen, but I doubt you thought about that. How many copies would he have to send out to get 40 responses? How many will show the video or send it to others? Sooner or later it will get seen by someone you know. Congrats. You are already an adult star. Stacy looked shocked. She had obviously never considered that. I'd never thought her that stupid. Now I have a question. Whose idea was it to invite me tonight? Not only invite me, but make sure I would attend? I asked. Stacy said that was Goliath's. So Gerald, you intended to cuck me? You wanted to screw Stacy in front of me before you wiped my memory, right? I asked. He shrugged. Stacy agreed it would be hot to do it while you watched. Even better if instead of just cursing us, you broke down and cried as she told you how much better I am. He frowned as I smiled. I said it would be hot, but Goliath insisted you be there. Stacy admitted. We had to make sure you were under our control. Oh, I'm sure he wanted me under control, but not just because he wanted to see me totally upset. That was icing on the cake, because he is a sadistic scumsucker, but he had other motives. I was there for a couple reasons. First, he needed time to screw you thoroughly. Not only him, but these other guys as well. He was going to record it all. Screwing you in front of me, and you excited, and even gloating about it would make excellent blackmail material. Even better than you being a happy witch for these guys. No matter what you claimed later, you could never dispute what you did. How you treated me. The second reason is the control issue. He knew I'd be here at home wondering where you were. He did not want me coming to find you, or maybe calling the police. Also, when he let you come home, while screwed and upset, he did not want me to react the wrong way. He anticipated I'd get the police involved then for sure. He wanted me totally out of it, hungover and confused. Plus, he needed his blackmail material to keep you in line. Like I said, this was never going to be a one-time thing. Nor was he going to give you a dime of that money, so you would have definitely been upset. After you told me all about your plans, Goliath had you go out and play the crowd. Not just dancing around, which should have been more than enough, but actually getting felt up. I doubt that many of those guys were really distracted enough to be thrown off their game. No, it was an advertisement for coming events. Goliath has already decided to turn you out as his 304. He might have to agree to not enter the next match to lure contestants back to compete without him being the sure winner. It is faster and easier money than have you turn tricks one John at a time. But eventually he'd have you doing that too, probably. Now I'm just guessing here, but that little couch in the office was pretty small for having sex with all these shitheads. I bet they have a motel reserved. Someplace close by. They already have the cameras set up. Maybe some supplies ready. Stacy said, yeah, Goliath has a room booked at the Sunrise Motel. She looked at Goliath, who sat scowling at me. She shook her head, but I could see the lights beginning to come on. She was clearly wondering if she had really been duped. Oh yes, but I thwarted those plans. I not only won the contest but got away. I was expecting the guys in the parking lot waiting to grab me. I'm guessing one or two others were in the office in case I was dumb enough to go back there with you when you got dressed. They regrouped and went to plan B, coming here and forcing the issue a second time. You were so desperate to get my memory wiped you agreed to go along with them without thinking. Once they got their money, they'd all screw you, but they'd do it in our bed this time while I laid in here unconscious. I'm guessing they'd threaten to kick in my nuts if you didn't act happy and totally on board while they recorded the action. You'd have to play their happy 304. At the gym, you were not only willing but excited to screw them. Well, Goliath happily, and then the others when he ordered you. I wonder if you were still happy to screw even though I won. Is that another agreed upon perk along with the money they'd get for wiping my memory? Or would they have to use a little force to get you to comply? I agreed to have sex with Goliath if he helped me, but not the others. Stacy admitted, softly. So they'd sit out here playing with themselves waiting for Goliath to screw until he was satisfied? I laughed. Damn, you really are naive. Do you really think they'd go to all this trouble if they weren't going to get something out of it? They'd all take turns, and the same result would happen. Once again, they would not leave you with a dime. And with a blackmail video, they'd own you until they got tired of it. All that other stuff about them witching you would come true as well, I said. And actually, it is better for them this way. At the gym, I'd have to get drunk and fall down some steps to explain how I got hurt. Even so, why I got so drunk would be a little hard to explain. I've never got so drunk I'd passed out and woke up with no memory. I'd have asked around. A party after an event where a woman offered herself would be pretty hard to hide. Maybe they counted on me being a dumbass and not thinking to investigate. They were going to risk it though. But to everybody's amazement, I beat Goliath. Just like David beat the original Goliath in the Bible. Now here, away from the gym, the explanation for how I got hurt would be much easier. I just won $40,000, so obviously somebody followed me home and mugged me. Nobody would have an inkling who did it except you seven. Stacy, you'd never tell because you were being blackmailed. I'd find out you were a witch. It is actually a better scenario than their original. I'd never suspect having been drugged, but chalk up my amnesia to getting the shit kicked out of me. And your idea of a black eye and cut lip is way off the mark. They'd make the mugging look real. It would have to match the story. They'd stomp my butt. Likely several kicks to the head, maybe ribs broken, etc. Which means a hospital visit and possibly massive injuries like I told you earlier. Only now, without your share of the prize money, we would not have a way to pay for it. Well, we wouldn't before because you wouldn't have got it then either. A single blow to the head after falling down steps at the gym might be plausible. Plus, you could explain being upset by my ignorant behavior getting shit-faced drunk. Here the mugging would be the best story, and to be honest, they'd have to torture me to find the money anyway. I did not bring it home. Wouldn't it be something if the money was lost because you wiped my memory before I told them where I hid it? Even without the money, I'm sure Goliath would not only be happy to beat me into the ground, he'd be happy to lend you the money for the medical bills. And you'd pay him back with your body. Just another hook in you. Your needing money might be his lead-in to get you to actively turn tricks. And you know that you'd be afraid to go off birth control, so you'd never have a baby. Not mine anyway. I figured out all that at the gym and said so out loud. I said you'd never have my kid. If you went off birth control, one of these guys would probably be the one to knock you up. Stacy stared at me with her mouth open. Now, just to show you another hole in the plans you made on the way over here, is the idea to say you managed to keep $20,000 I gave you to hold and I got mugged on my way here. Yet we have 42 witnesses counting the referees who watched me pocket all the cash and leave without you. No, you'd never be allowed to keep any of it. Your cover story would never hold up. They'd take every bit because a real mugger would have got it all. How am I doing, guys? I asked with a grin. How'd an uneducated jarhead outmaneuver us? Goliath fumed. Stacy looked at him in horror, finally realizing just how far she'd been duped. Just because I don't have an advanced education does not mean I am stupid. I said, I was taught to think through a situation in the Marines, not just blindly follow orders. You never know when your leader might be killed in combat, and you might have to step up and take charge. Earlier tonight, I looked at these 5 goons of yours and thought it overkill. You telling me you controlled these guys because they could not take you was one of your more stupid statements. Or was that an explanation for why they would not compete? Either way, you could not control what they did away from you. They'd each have to worry about one of the others talking and blowing your whole plan. I'm guessing you were all good buddies. You get along and go fishing, or some such bullshit. I'm guessing you told them of a cute piece of shit you were cultivating. You just couldn't get her to go all the way cheating and give up her body. So with the help of these guys, you came up with a plan. These guys are not just in it for the money, as the cash split would be small. Who is willing to commit multiple felonies for that, or especially to help a married friend get a piece? Even if it was a full night of sex with a hot woman, plus run the risk of your own wives finding out? No, the reward had to be worth the risk. And how do you explain being out all night to your wives? I'm guessing you are all supposed to be gone together right now on a fishing trip or some such overnight excursion. Goliath suddenly reached out and grabbed Stacy and pulled her in front of him. All right, a-hole. You said she loved you enough to act excited and happy to keep us from stomping your balls. Yeah, we plan to do all that. Even telling her you'd never father a kid and might never walk, much less sex, after we got finished with you. That was on the burner if she changed her mind anytime. How much do you love her? Drop the gun, or I'll snap her neck, Goliath gritted. I see your hesitation. You aren't gonna shoot me and risk hitting her. No, I'm not. I admitted. I'm gonna start shooting these guys, and you killing her will give me the perfect excuse. Not just me being threatened. I can say watching my wife being murdered. I feared for my life, and it would be absolutely true. And if she's dead, it would also save me having to divorce her. I'll be careful not to kill you though. I'll shoot you in every major joint. Knees, elbows, wrists, even your hips and ankles. Now turn her loose. 3, 2. My Glock was aimed straight at the guy in front of me, and my finger moved to the trigger. God damn it, Jerry, turn her loose. Now, commanded one of the goons. He was obviously the real leader, or one of the smarter ones. This shithead is gonna shoot us. He is not bullshitting. He turned to me. Okay, it's time to end this. Jerry is not going to hurt the girl, are you, Jerry? Without waiting for an answer, he turned back to me. And you are not going to shoot anybody and risk prison. You may be tough and strong, but you'd still wind up somebody's witch. At the same time, you are not gonna call the police to turn us in, which is what you'd really like to do, the leader said. No, you are going to let us walk out of here, our tails between our legs. No money and no 304. You were right about all that. We fully intended to blackmail the dumb witch into giving us her body anytime we wanted it. And why would I not call the police? I asked. We had 42 witnesses tonight who watched your wife cavort around playing the witch. They were told you were on board with it. You pimped her out. Of course you denied it later. But that was because she was doing such a great job and you got jealous. The murder part was bullshit. Maybe we threatened to kick your butt for trying to back out at the last minute. But murder? No way. That's how the scenario will play out since you cannot prove a thing otherwise. Goliath turned Stacy loose. She glared at him, obviously scared of him now. She was also angry about how he used her and planned to treat her in the future. Yes, we'd be caught with ketamine and a video recorder in our possession when the cops searched. We even have a tube to force the booze and drugs down your throat. All that stuff is easily explained. Many people have video equipment in their car. We planned to record the arm wrestling event, which we did but with other equipment. We'd have had to do a careful edit of the events, of course. And I always have ketamine in my possession, along with a whole load of other narcotics. I'm a veterinarian, and this is my partner. He nodded to the man on his right. We keep a whole emergency kit in our cars all the time. We do house calls on a routine basis. So we carry that other equipment on a routine basis. Yeah, we were going to use the same tube on you we used on a cow yesterday. We did wash it off though. Obviously, Stacy is not going to risk going back to work at the gym knowing what we planned. But she cannot make a complaint either. There is no proof of what we planned. But there is ample proof of her being a witch. She made a video of herself, plus her actions tonight. You might not want all that exposed. Imagine a man pimping his own wife in a small community. Everybody will talk. I want that money. Goliath growled. I just bought a new truck. I need it. Well, you are going to have to figure another way to get it. You lost the competition. That was the only way to explain the 20K to your wife. And Army is right that the other 20 split 5 ways is barely spending money and not worth committing multiple felonies. Stacy was the prize we wanted, and she couldn't say no. Army, you were wrong about us making her a 304. Not for a long time anyway, if ever. Oh yes. We were planning more events with Stacy as the prize. It would be easy money, but we also would limit the guys screwing her and therefore the risk of an STD. But the main goal was keeping her for ourselves until we tired of her. Probably we'd have kept her 5 or 6 years at least. She'd have a hot, hard body from working out all the time. Screwing us virtually every day would not be that much wear and tear on her. Not physically anyway. I'm sure after a year or so, she'd even come to fully accept her life as our witch if not enjoy it. A second man said, we'd eventually let her have a kid too if she really wanted and begged really nicely. We'd just use protection until you got her pregnant. We even talked about slipping her some of the money she earned for us back in the form of tips to help with expenses, just to keep her happy and enthusiastic. The man sitting next to the leader said, we will walk out of here and you and your wife can work out your issues. But I can't see any amount of counseling helping. You'd never be able to forget or forgive. But maybe I can offer a solution. I will give you some ketamine, a good dose that with a few drinks should do the job. We planned on making you drink about 6 shots worth of booze. If you really love Stacy, you can drink the stuff after we leave. She won't be working for the gym anymore since she knows what we had in store, so she won't be in any danger from us. And I imagine she's learned her lesson about being gullible and how cheating is risky. Hopefully, she will keep it in her mind from now on. But if you really love her, you could forget it and move on and have that baby you want." I was amused at their fast planning. Did they seriously think I'd do that? It would be giving her a pass. The guy continued, "It is easy to explain the money. She'd just tell you the truth. You won it in an arm wrestling contest. That was the special event you were invited to attend. She got your entry to compete as a bonus for good work, but had no idea you were so good. Most of those competitors do not live locally, so it is doubtful you'd ever accidentally meet one later. And if you did, he might mention your hot wife, but it is unlikely he would comment about her being such a witch." I conceded his point as if it made sense. But how could she explain my missing memory? Well, that is tricky. She'd have to beat you some after you passed out. Maybe say after you got home you too had several drinks to celebrate, which would explain the booze in your system. You went out to the car and fell down the front steps and hit your head. The problem with that is you might decide to get checked out at a hospital. You'd have to figure a story ahead of time to make it plausible, but you would be married, which is a plus. You love her so much, you trust her explanation. Of course, your loving wife would never lie to you. None of the 6 men could help from chuckling at that statement. He smiled. I wondered if he was already planning to circle back and get the money from Stacy somehow. I suddenly realized the rest of his plan, but let him talk. You'd have to take the ketamine tonight, like in the next few hours, though, to make sure it wipes enough of your memory. You might remember planning to go to the gym, just not what happened there. That would be a blank for Stacy to fill in. Now the problem I see is what to do with Stacy. I could just divorce her and walk away. That would be the smartest option. I mused out loud. Stacy began to beg. She said we just talked how we could fix things, and she promised to never do anything like this in the future. You'd still have been a cheating witch, but maybe you've learned. But the problem I have with taking the ketamine, even after you guys are long gone, is twofold. Would you guys come back and threaten Stacy for the money, or half of it while I was out of it? Maybe tell her you'd out her to me, and while you had no proof, you'd create doubt and a rift in our marriage. She's dumb enough to fall for that. I saw head shakes from all of them, including Stacy. I said I wanted them to all make a verbal individual promise I'd never see thee again. Each in turn said they would not bother Stacy nor myself in the future. They began to pile it on, thinking I was about to let them go. So the big problem is Stacy has to hurt me enough to cover the amnesia. She'd have to really kick the shit out of me, and in the right places to look like a fall down the stairs. Maybe even push me down them before I completely passed out. Do you think you could do that, Stacy? Oh yes. I'd make it look good. Stacy answered earnestly. A few kicks to the head and maybe the ribs, but not enough to send you to the hospital. A real fall down stairs could break more than we want. Or we could stage a mugging like we planned earlier. It's not too late to go out. Our story could be we want to celebrate, had a few drinks, and you'd have the alcohol in your system to help the ketamine along. Then the story would be after we left the bar you'd get mugged. I know. I could say 3 guys started beating on you, and I ran for help. They got scared, jumped in their truck and drove away. I turned back, helped you up and brought you home. Then you'd wake up and everything would be cool. Of course the money would be safe here all the time. I can say I helped to get you home, but we'd really do my kicking you here at home. That is better than leaving you to be found somewhere like our earlier plan, she said. She admitted how far they'd planned to go if needed. I'd use a pair of your heavy boots and when you passed out, kick you in the head a few times. That would answer the amnesia. To make the mugging look good, I'd have to kick you in the ribs and leave bruises. I'd probably have to kick you in the balls too. Guys always kick each other in the nuts in a fight, don't they? Not too hard to damage, but enough to still hurt later so you didn't get suspicious. 2 or 3 should do it, unless you think stomps would be better than kicking. You know, to make bigger bruises with less damage. Damn, who was this woman? She was quick to get on board with kicking my butt. The 6 men were staring at her. And tomorrow, I'd be your nurse bringing you ice packs for your head and balls. Let's do it, honey. Stacy gushed. We'd save our marriage and have money for a baby. And I promise I will not cheat on you in the future. I've learned my lesson. After a pause, she added. And that includes making out and letting anybody feel me up or anything. Since you call that cheating. Since I called that cheating? She apparently still did not agree. I thought. Plus you were still really pissed I screwed up your hot night of sex. You really wanted to have sex with Goliath, didn't you? You'd be thinking of that when you kicked or stomped my balls. I asked in as normal a voice as possible. Okay, I won't lie. If I did, you'd know. And since you won't remember anyway, yeah, I was really looking forward to screwing him. I felt his excitement and wanted it. As strong as he'd really screw me hard. It'd be wild. Stacy admitted. But you scared me when you figured out what they'd planned. I'd never do him now. So part of me is mad at you and part at him. I'd like to kick both of you in the nuts. Hey, think we can make that a condition for letting them go? I get to kick Goliath once or twice too? Goliath bristled and said, screw that. I'm being honest here. You won't remember me saying this, but you also won't remember the other stuff either. Her flushed face told me she'd remember every bit of it and enjoy the memory. All she would miss out on was actually screwing Goliath. While she outlined her plans, told me she really was looking forward to busting my balls like she looked forward to breaking my heart earlier. It would all be good if I had no memory at the end of it all, as far as she was concerned. Now that we have all this honesty, I do have a couple more questions before I make my decision to let you go. Or let Stacy wipe my memory. Stacy and Goliath both nodded vigorously. You both agreed you never actually screwed? You were being very candid since you knew you'd wipe my memory. Goliath said Stacy requested I be given a shot, however small, to win the pot. She did not think I had a snowball's chance in hell of doing it, so it almost seemed like a wasted gesture. My question is this: did you intend to force me to watch you screw before you drugged me? You made it sound both ways a few times. Once you said your boys would drug me elsewhere. I suspected the answer but knew for sure before either opened their mouths. Yeah, we both thought it excited to make you watch. You wouldn't remember anyway, but Stacy wanted the memory of having all that power over you. The word power was significant when I considered how much she seemed to look forward to kicking my nuts after I passed out. Or really maybe she'd do it while I was still awake, just to hear me scream, and then not remember it later. I didn't put a thing past the witch at this point. Not just me. Stacy protested for some reason, once again not realizing what she was saying. You were the one who said it would be hot if Army cried watching a better man screw me like he never had. My second question really does not matter, but who suggested it first? I asked. Goliath answered quickly. I did, but Stacy had a bunch of suggestions to make it even wilder. Okay, one other issue. You guys said she gave you all BJ this afternoon to pay you for your help. Tell me about that, I said, in a neutral tone. One said, well, it was pretty simple. We told her we had to make sure she was totally on board with what was happening and not suddenly be too inhibited to put on a real show. Also, since we could not compete and have a chance at her, we needed something to pay us. She agreed and did it. I nodded. I acted like I did not care. In reality, by that time, I was over being upset. I just wanted to satisfy my curiosity. Okay, so let's recap. Obviously, nobody wants me to start shooting, which, like I said, I will at the slightest provocation. You don't want me to call the cops. You pointed out the damage to my reputation, but forgot to mention having to answer to your wives. You got BJ's right? I want to hear from each of you who did. I want to see a show of honesty here. Tell me if you did. All five told me Stacy had given them that afternoon. I asked for details. They all have explained one by one. So, we need to let these guys go, Stacy said. Then we can go take care of your memory and we'll have a whole reset on our marriage. I promised to never be tempted again. I barely kept a straight face at her lies. She was remarkably stupid believing the bullshit fed her by seemingly anyone. Yeah, after you enjoy yourself stomping my nuts. I said, oh no, I won't enjoy it. I'll just do enough to make it look like a real mugging, she said, contradicting her earlier statements. And you guys won't double back and try to get Stacy to give up the money and herself? I asked, with a smile. Of course not, the veterinarian claimed. That would be stupid. Stacy knows what we planned and would never let us near here. Plus, she'd have your pistol. Right, guys? I heard a chorus of no's and hell no's. Okay, I made my decision. I pulled a cell phone out of my pocket and using my left hand, I raised the Glock slightly from where it had rested on my knee to remind them all I would shoot if provoked. All seven stiffened to see me pull out a second cell phone. You see, Stacy, these guys are not going to leave. Or rather, they will not go far, no matter what they say. They wouldn't want to waste all night before they came back. They'll give us just enough time for me to take the ketamine and maybe even stage the mugging. I'd guess one might even whisper in your ear to call them once I was drugged, so they'd know you'd taken care of things and they were in the clear. Stacy looked shocked. And you'd be dumb enough to tell them I'd taken the stuff if I was dumb enough to actually swallow it. Then they'd tell you the rest of the plan. Their plan. I said. She asked me what that was. They already own you. They have enough blackmail material to make you their 304 now. You just heard them describe how you did the performance. Do you seriously think they did not video every second they could? I said. Now of course they needed more. I explained. You kept saying it was not cheating. They could not risk you sticking with that attitude and tell me they were trying to blackmail you and confessing you only blew them. Now that they, and you of course, know my attitude that they have all they'll need. As soon as you tell them I drank the ketamine, they'd come around and demand the money first and then you. We'd be back to square one. You there 304 and me oblivious. I offered with a grin. Of course I could have pretended to have taken it, faked passing out and waited for them to show and make their demands. That would make my case against them easy. But you might have wanted to put my Glock away. Or one of these a-holes might have got ignorant and forced me to start shooting them. I looked at the shocked look on the leader's face. Goliath began ranting how no dumb Marine should have been able to outthink them. So where's the video? I asked. I know it has to be in one of your pockets. Stacy might be stupid and gullible, but even she might not take your word at face value anymore. You'd have to show her you really had blackmail material. It's in the camera in my case. I left it by the front door. The leader, the veterinarian, said. I told him to get it. No way. As soon as I get up, you'll shoot me. I assured him that unless I had a very good reason, I was not going to risk jail. I suggested he crawl, or maybe ask Jerry to crawl to get it. Screw that. I ain't gonna crawl for no man. Jerry, Goliath, stated, emphatically. Finally, Stacy said she would get the case. She pulled the camera out of the case, opened it, removed the SD card and tossed it to me. Does this camera record to the SD card or the hard drive? I asked. I smiled when the owner said, both. It's designed you can pull the card and upload video, but will also save to the drive. Do you want me to show you how to delete the file? Nope. I just wanted a copy of the witch cheating on me. What you have there is between you and her. I said to the shock of everybody in the room. Stacy wasn't too concerned with distributing her other videos, so why should I care about this one? Stacy has the camera in her hands. Maybe she wants to delete it, but I don't give a rat's shit. But they can blackmail me, she whimpered pitifully. Only if you let them. I said, the camera is in your hand. Do with it what you will. I have other concerns than what a witch uses as advertisement, like the video of you. When I heard 911, what is the nature of your emergency? I gave my name and address and reported I had 6 men whom my wife had invited to my home to attack and rob me, held at gunpoint, and would like to have officers dispatched. I assured her an ambulance was not needed at this time, but might if one of the men got ignorant and made a move in my direction. All 6 men glared at me. What the hell? Why? We were ready to leave. You were even talking about fixing things with your wife. I gave you the camera. You could have deleted every bit of evidence. We'd have no blackmail material left. Dr. Veterinarian asked. Stacy was staring at me, shocked. Well, my marriage is in the shitter because of you a-holes, so I want to return the favor. You can explain to your wives why you got arrested and see if they buy your bullshit. I cannot imagine they are all as gullible as mine. They all stared at me. I saw 3 of the guys shift in their seats. I brought the Glock up and aimed it at them, wiggling my trigger finger where they could see it and put it firmly on the trigger. I would not advise it. This trigger has been reworked. It is sensitive and takes just less than 2 pounds of pressure to fire. And Stacy, I told you several times, I'd never trust you again. You just seemed far too happy about stomping my nuts to support the story of a mugging. I said, now grinning, Hal, will you come out here? He emerged from around the corner. Hal has been listening to every word since you guys arrived. It's his phone I hold in my hand. I still had an open line with 911, so I knew all this was being recorded. I hoped it picked up the guys talking. I knew the pin recorder would, but the 911 would be backup. Whatever he heard is hearsay, one yelled. I shrugged and told him it would still be entered as a statement, and whether allowed in court as evidence or not, their wives might not like what was said. Now more than ever, I needed my pistol up and moving back and forth. Had it not been for that, I'd have been pounded into the carpet. Even with the pistol, a few of these guys looked like they were a hair's breadth from trying. Hal, would you step outside onto the steps and tell the police I will put my gun down when you call back inside? When the police arrive, they will take all of us into custody. You have not been a participant. Would you lock up and secure everything for me? Copy. I asked, looking at my windbreaker laying on the side table. I handed him the SD card. Copy, he confirmed. Then come down to the police station to help out and give evidence. He nodded. We heard sirens as multiple police cars approached. The 911 operator came back on. Officers are on location. I told her my friend was on the doorstep. The door was unlocked and told her where I was sitting in the room. I'd have a pistol in my offhand held by the barrel. I knew the first officer through the door. So did Hal, as it was his older brother, Bob, a police lieutenant. What is going on here, Army? First put the weapon on the floor and step away. I did as instructed. I could tell his body cam was running. Well, it seems my wife has been cheating on me. Earlier today, she gave these 5 guys BJ and planned to screw this one. They threatened to wipe my memory with a big dose of ketamine and alcohol. When I thwarted their plans, they drove over from Kensington for a second chance at me. My wife Stacy let them in. She gave them my cell phone so I could not record anything. It is in that guy's shirt pocket. I said, pointed at Goliath. That should show evil intentions if nothing else. You might want to secure that phone. I'd hate for it to get lost. Preposterous. We drove Stacy over here when her husband left her in Kensington after he won an arm wrestling competition. She invited us to celebrate his win. The man is delusional. He thinks we are having sex with his wife and even told the contestants at the competition he feared for his life. The goon leader said. I suggested Bob take us all to the station to give our statements and make a public record. He quickly told me he knew what to do without my input. I grinned. Soon all of us but Hal were in handcuffs and loaded into various police cruisers. Hal told Bob he'd come down to the station as soon as he locked up and secured everything. Our plan was he upload a copy of the recordings to the cloud in my computer. I suspected he'd make more copies than that. Once segregated from the others at the police station, I quickly explained what happened tonight and what I surmised they planned to do. I advised Bob check them in and then take a look at the case left at my house for ketamine and a camera where he should find a video of a nude Stacy in the act. He offered me coffee and began to take the others' statements. Army, these guys all tell the same story of you being a crazy scumsucker. You entered and won an arm wrestling competition, and when they came to your home at Stacy's invitation, you held them at gunpoint and began making wild accusations. One is a lawyer and says he will represent the others, but since he is also a suspect, he is not allowed to go back and forth and maybe advise the others. They are all writing statements now. Do you have any proof? I cannot open the files on that camera without a warrant, but I did impound it. I told him Hal has audio recording of their confessions and is making copies. That recording changed things immediately. As soon as she heard of its existence, Stacy began to bawl and changed her story to tell how she was seduced into cheating and how the guys were going to blackmail her into being their sex partner. An officer accompanied Hal and I back to my house. With me giving permission, they did not need a warrant. They secured the small case one of the goons had left inside the front door when they arrived. In addition to the camera Stacy had removed earlier was 2 bottles of liquor, ketamine, a couple big tubes of personal lubricant, and a few ugly-looking flexible hoses. The downloaded video clearly showed my soon-to-be ex-wife happily serving all 5 of the goons and Goliath in a big show. She openly stated how much she loved the wild eroticism and how much she was looking forward to screwing Goliath once he won the contest, and they had her husband under control. Bob might have overstepped, but he let me watch the video at the station. Of course, I had my own copy by that point that I could watch later. Being early morning hours on a Sunday, he had enough evidence to keep Stacy, Goliath, and all 5 goons in jail until arraignment on Monday. I kept the SD card I had taken hidden. Bob told Hal and I to stick around. I told him I'd be as far away as my cell phone, then promptly ignored his orders and left town. Sunday morning, I paid for 2 fairly inexpensive round-trip flights to Las Vegas. Hal and I hit several betting venues in Sin City. We collected all of the failed discarded sports betting receipts that we could find on the floor and in trash cans. I was amazed how many games were held every Sunday. Even though I wouldn't need it all, we didn't stop until we had close to $40,000 worth. Once Stacy realized that I was really divorcing her, I felt certain that she would come after the money, at least on a 50-50 shared basis. I wasn't going to give the witch a penny if I could help it. I wanted to claim I'd lost most of it. Hal and I had a wild time. We took a taxi to no less than 4 strip clubs the first night and posed for photos with the club in the background. We concocted a story of how we each took a few thousand and spread it around the hard-working girls. We'd say we wanted to give it to honest 304s, not a cheating witch like Stacy. Fishing a couple liquor bottles out of the trash, we half-filled them with soda and water and posed for pictures of our drunken fun time, leering at the camera, waving our bottles in some photos, and what looked like mixed drinks in others. According to our photos, we had a wild time in Vegas. We even gave a little money to a group collecting for a children's cancer hospital. We arrived home wearing the sweatshirts you got for donating over $100. Of course, we claimed we gave them $1,000 apiece. Monday, my cell phone erupted with what seemed like dozens of calls. None of the numbers looked familiar, so I ignored them. I suspected 1 or 2 might belong to Stacy's parents if she called them for help. One text said, "I told you to stay close. Now answer your phone or call me back. I'm gonna kick both your butts, Bob." We called him back. He'd used his wife's phone, so there was not an official record of his call. We told him we were blowing off steam, and he told us to get our butts home. Bob chewed us out officially upon our return Monday evening, as he escorted us into the district attorney's office. We claimed nobody told us we had to stay in town, just close, and we interrupted that to mean the continental US as our last foray away from home was to Asia. After all, we were not under arrest and said we could be reached by phone. Neither Bob nor the district attorney were happy with our explanation. The DA wanted to review my version of events, so once again I told the story. Of course, my version fitted exactly with what the audio recording said. I'd listened to the whole recording on the way back from Vegas. I was more determined than ever that no matter what criminal charges might be levied, Stacy was history. I visited the first attorney who could see me on short notice. My dad had told me who to call after he chewed my butt for running to Vegas. Bob had called him a few times looking for me. I planned to divorce Stacy and wanted her served as soon as possible. Mr. Price advised that the simple divorce I wanted would cost in the neighborhood of $2,000, but divorce was the least of my worries at this point. Of course, I openly discussed the whole sordid event and confessed I went a little nuts and spent, gambled, or gave away virtually all the money I'd won in the arm wrestling competition. He laughed and told me due to the nature of the events, I might not have to share that money with Stacy anyway, but since I did not have it, it was not a problem. Price shook his head. Son, you've read too many stories. You spent way too much effort too soon. Divorce is not the issue here, nor is hiding the money. When your house is on fire, you don't call the guy who does remodeling. You put the fire out first. Then you worry about insurance and way down the road, fixing the damage. You have your wife and 6 guys on charges of multiple felonies including assault, wrongful imprisonment, conspiracy plus whatever else the DA throws at them. The men are also charged with attempted human trafficking. Slavery is a major offense. Your divorce is not worth more concern than a pimple on your butt right now. Give it a couple days and we will handle it all. I'll walk you through it. Tuesday morning, I went apartment hunting. I located a decent, affordable unit near my place of employment. I did not even have to put down a deposit on the apartment. My parents would have gladly taken me in, but I'm too independent to return home now, and I sure could not stay in the same house as Stacy. By that point, everybody in our little town knew parts of what had happened. Rumors abounded. Normally rumors are worse than the truth, but this time they were far more tame. According to rumors, Stacy had an affair with her boss who came to my house to threaten to kick my butt. I held a gun on him long enough to call the police. Once released from jail, Stacy refused to move back in with her parents, so I moved out to avoid confrontation with her new boyfriend. I thought it best I not clarify what really happened. Yet, following the advice of my lawyer, I held off releasing my audio recordings. Not even the 7 charged knew all the evidence against them. Wednesday morning, I began to receive a new set of phone calls from unknown numbers. Once again, I ignored them after finding the first 3 were from curious friends trying to get the skinny on what happened. The 4th was from a Gloria Jenkins. A text from the same number read, Mr. Bostic, I am Gloria Jenkins, wife of Gerald Jenkins. Will you please call me and tell me what is going on? I found it very curious Goliath's wife had no idea what had happened. She answered on the first ring, Mr. Bostic, thank you for returning my call. All Gerald will say is that this is all a big misunderstanding. You are making allegations, but there is no proof of any wrongdoing. That alone tells me there is indeed something to it. Can we meet in person? I'd taken the week off from work, so I drove over to Kensington to meet her. I took Hal's handy-dandy recording pin along just in case. I was amazed at the woman waiting for me who identified herself as Gloria as soon as I walked in the door of the cafe. She was beautiful and did not need the light makeup she wore to stand out in a crowd. She smiled brightly as she shook my hand. Gloria was a slim blonde who appeared in her late 20s. Later I'd find she was indeed a few years older than me at 28. After only a few seconds of conversation, her initial easy-going public demeanor could not quite hide her anxiety. But I told myself to be careful. I had yet to tell if she was a victim or one of the enemy. She was after all married to Goliath and might support him no matter what. I asked her what she wanted to know. She told me the unvarnished truth. All she'd been able to gather was her husband and 5 of his friends had been arrested after an altercation at my home where I held the men at gunpoint. I alleged they had done something with my wife, but Jerry claimed it was totally unfounded. I'm being fed a line of bullshit, Mr. Bostic, and I don't like it. I've talked with the other wives, and they are being kept in the dark as well. We'd like to know what is going on. Jerry is, well, Jerry, and that is a problem I'll have to deal with on my own. Will you please enlighten me? I knew this woman could easily charm me into whatever she wanted. She just had that way about her. Sure, I was going to make sure you and the 5 goons' wives and girlfriends were fully informed. Anyway, goons? Yeah, Goliath's 5 muscle-bound friends who did their best to try to intimidate me until I pulled a pistol on them. I'll tell you what, why don't you call me Army? It's my nickname. I offered. Also, let's just invite those 3 women over to join us, and they can listen to what I have to say firsthand. Then they can ask questions as well and not rely on the audio recording. Gloria asked how I knew who the women were, and she was recording the conversation. 3 well-dressed women in their mid to late 20s sat in a booth across the cafe. They did not seem to be actively engaged in conversation with each other, and occasionally one or the other would venture a glance in our direction. They have been watching us since I walked in, while trying very hard to not appear to be doing so. And you put your little purse on top of the table and moved it a bit. Normally, a woman would put it down by her side. I said. She looked surprised as I waved to the 3 women sitting on the other side of the cafe and beckoned them over. You are very observant, Mr. Army, Gloria said as the 3 women approached sheepishly. He figured out who you were. He was going to tell us everything anyway. After introductions, one of the women asked tentatively if it was as bad as they imagined. Maybe not for you. For me, it is the end of my marriage. In a nutshell, Goliath, Jerry has been trying to seduce my wife for some time now. He succeeded to do everything but actual sex. He and his 5 buddies all got a reward for my wife Saturday and planned to complete the plan with a sex fest and then blackmailing her into being available to them from now on. I watched their facial expressions change from disbelief to anger and back to incredulity. Muttered curses abounded. No damn wonder the cops kept them so long. They got out this morning, and all of them have been meeting with their lawyer. Gloria said. I take it you have proof even though from the limited messages we have received the boys say you do not. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a flash drive. I have a few hours of audio recording. It is pretty incriminating. There is a couple hours of junk in the middle. Let me give you a brief version and then you can listen to the recording. When I was finished, damn, I cannot believe how stupid your wife is. A BJ is not sex and is not cheating? Indeed. And to make a video of herself knowing it was going to be sent to strangers, one of the women said. She'd given her name, but it had not registered. And to think it is okay to cheat and rub your nose in it as long as you were fed drugs and don't remember it afterwards. I nodded as did the other 3 women. I thought it curious they did not seem surprised by their husband's actions. I'm not, said the woman. My husband is an egotistical self-centered shit. My mom told me he was going to pull some shit like this. She said he'd eventually cheat. When we heard something had happened involving an irate husband with a gun, we all suspected it was something like this. Well, not like this. This is beyond anything we'd imagined. Gloria asked if we could all go to her office where we could listen to the recording. She explained she was in the investments business and her office was nearby. They listened to the recording, fast-forwarding through most of the arm wrestling competition. At the end, they were all almost as angry as me. Teach me how to give it. My butt. One seethed. If that scumsuckers will ever try to do it again, and I'll bite it off. Then she grinned and laughed. Hey, I could use that tape in my defense if I do. He says I don't know what I'm doing, so he knew the risk. The others laughed. All 4 of the women made short phone calls. None of the calls lasted more than a minute. Let me give you some background, Gloria said. Jerry and the other 5 have been buddies from high school through college. Their lives centered around bodybuilding. In college, they were like frat boys, well, attitude-wise. They chased girls, but they were so driven with bodybuilding. They did not party much. Well, they did not drink much nor do drugs. Yeah, they were good-looking stuck-up guys, but they were disciplined and charming. They bedded as many girls as they could. I know, we are just as stupid, but we figured the chasing ended with us. We girls met and socialized because of them. The guys were tight. To be honest, they are closer to each other than to us wives. That is one of the biggest reasons none of us have kids. We are all financially successful, but our marriages, not so much. We girls just lucked out we get along so well. We are satellites around our husband's bromance. I gotta know, Army, Gloria said quietly when the others said their goodbyes and left promising to talk later. I know you are an ex-Marine. Jerry called you a dumb jarhead, but you obviously are anything but dumb. You don't have much education, but you talk well. You have the brain power to immediately suss out their plan and then counter it. Yet you work as a laborer at a very low-income job. Why work so far below your potential? I shrugged. I tried to explain how after I returned home from serving in the military, I wanted to be close to my parents. She asked if they were invalids or had some physical or emotional reason they needed constant help. I shook my head. Actually, both my parents chewed my butt for my decision to stay in the little town. They pointed out they did not need me living right there almost in their backyard. I could live anywhere within 100 miles and consider it close. But I just got complacent. It was home, and I was reluctant to leave it again. Hal was in the same boat. His brother was a senior police officer, yet Hal worked at a low-income, low-stress job. You heard me say there was little to do when I was overseas. I said, we did not just arm wrestle all the time. I read a lot. Everything I could get my hands on. I particularly liked mystery stories and tried to look for plot holes in the story, second-guess the characters. I guess it kept my brain from vegetating. Gloria laughed. I like that laugh. I liked it a little too much and immediately felt guilty. My marriage was over, but I was still married. So was this charming woman with me. My face got hot and I quickly made an excuse to leave. I told Gloria she could call me anytime. I was not about to admit just how much I looked forward to it. Stacy chased me down quickly. After the first 24 phone calls, texts and voicemails pleading to talk to me and clear up our misunderstanding so we can save our marriage, I relented. All right, Stacy, what makes you think there is a misunderstanding and there is a chance in hell of saving our marriage? I asked when I saw her. She gave me a deer-in-the-headlight look. You made it clear several times Saturday night you did not think your actions a problem. According to you, flirting, making out, and letting another man touch you intimately while you fondled him was not a problem. Even doing what you have done to the man and 5 of his friends was not cheating. You were happy to go further as long as I was unaware. Stacy began to babble, repeating she did not mean to hurt me. She just got caught up in the excitement when a hot man like Goliath showed an interest. So when the next hot man comes along you might get caught up again, huh? I asked sarcastically. And you were perfectly happy to rub my nose in it as you screwed the guy right in front of me, knowing how much it would hurt me. Ridicule me, cuck me to my face. Laugh and tell your new lover how you wanted him to show me who the better man is. Then wipe my memory and everything would be fine. No harm, no foul, right? I was surprised I did not raise my voice. I did not feel anger. What I felt was indignation. Stacy ran through her list of arguments and finally admitted she had been wrong. But I want you, Army. I want to have your babies. It was just some fun and I'll admit I took a terrible risk. I thought that if you did not know it would be fine. And I thought you'd never know. Well, yeah, you'd know that night, but you'd lose all memory of it, so it would be like it never happened. Except you would know. You'd remember and always have it in the back of your mind. In the future, we'd have a disagreement and you'd think, ha, I got over on you that one time, a-hole? I gritted. Stacy looked shocked. But what about counseling? I talked to a couple girlfriends and they suggested that. Stacy asked. I asked her if she wanted her own copy of what she and the others said Saturday night. I suggested if she really thought what she said was acceptable, after she listened to that tape I'd talk with her again. I was not about to agree to seriously consider counseling because there was no amount of counseling that could fix us. No amount of forgiveness. I just did not have it in me. But if she really thought her actions were not that bad, I did want to hear her try to justify it to third party. I'd like to see what that counselor would have to say. The following Saturday, Gloria asked me to a dinner party at her house. She and the other 3 wives, plus the girlfriends of the 2 single guys, wanted to meet. I wanted to see Gloria, but I was not completely trusting. I feared Jerry might show up with 1 or more of his goon squad. I packed a small pistol in my belt under my shirt. I'm thrilled to see you tonight, Army. I was hoping you'd trust me enough to come, she said warmly. If the situation was reversed, I'm not sure I'd have the courage. I'd suspect an ambush. Then she grinned. You are smart enough to not be blindly trusting, aren't you? I'm guessing if I frisk you, I'd find you were carrying. My blush exposed me. She grinned. Smart, but I assure you that you have nothing to worry about. The women talked about their husbands' feeble attempts at excuses. None of them seemed that upset about divorcing. Either they really are thinking of it as breaking up with another woman, or they are exceptional actors. They seem mostly worried about the financial costs, and we made it clear it will cost them dearly. We are going to go for half of whatever they have now, and we are not going to pay a cent towards their criminal defense. My husband tried to downplay the charges against him as no big deal. I began quoting parts of the conversations you recorded, and he about peed his pants. One said, he did not know you had recorded most of the evening. I didn't think it a problem as his lawyer would get all the evidence sooner or later. You aren't upset I told them you recorded them, are you? I shook my head and told them that was perfect. My main goal was to burn them and expose them to their wives no matter what the authorities did to them. Jerry's reaction was a simple jarhead. Why the hell did he think to have a recording device in the first goddamn place? Gloria reported to giggles from the others. Well, it saved me a bad marriage. No way could I marry Andy knowing what a scumbag he is. I need to look inside the next man, not just at his body, one very cute little woman said. The other women cheered and held their glasses high in agreement. I glanced over at Gloria, who seemed to be studying me. Did you talk to your wife? or I assume soon-to-be ex-wife, Army? Asked one of the women. I admitted I had, as I was curious what kind of bullshit explanation she might give me. Well, let's hear what she said. I know you recorded it. Hell, every one of us took a page out of your book and recorded what our cheating but husbands had to offer as an explanation. We compared notes. The boys are circling the wagons, but they don't stand a chance. What the law doesn't do to them, we will. My dear husband might lose his veterinary license. He has a hearing this week for misuse of anesthetic drugs. I played the recording. Damn, that woman is delusional. She seriously did not think what she did was all that wrong. She is just upset you found out, or rather you remember. She admitted to being a witch, but thinks you have a future, and acts like she seriously wants one with you. Gloria said Stacy loved me. Well, if that is love, I'd hate to see what she does if she hated him. Oh, she loves him. She wants his babies and wants to stay married. Gloria said. You can hear that in her voice. She just wants to have a little sex on the side. She doesn't understand love is not enough to make a marriage work. There are several other things you have to have as well. Gloria looked at me intently, but did not elaborate. I waited until midweek to call Gloria, ostensibly to see how she was doing. I was surprised to see she seemed honestly pleased to hear from me. We talked and decided to get together the following weekend. I want you to know, I was very happy you called, Army, she said when we got together. I was reluctant to call you as much as I wanted to do just that. Now I was the one surprised. I hope you are trusting me this time, Gloria said, and then blushed as she grinned and continued. Maybe I ought to frisk you to see. And it won't be your waistband I'll be feeling. I stared at her open mouth. Oh hell, we are not children. I think we both feel the connection, she said. Of course we met under the absolutely wrong conditions. I'm sure you have wondered what kind of shallow witch I am to fall for a guy like Jerry. I opened my mouth to protest but said nothing as she continued. I was in love with the idea of being in love. I let my hormones do my thinking. Jerry was smart, fairly nice looking, and he had the physique that made every woman and most men admire him. It fed my ego to imagine them envying me being the one to win him. One woman who did not envy me was my mom. She warned me he would break my heart. She said he was as shallow as a toddler's kiddie pool. Of course I did not listen and did not realize she was right until it was too late and got married. But I'm not a quitter either. Gloria grinned sheepishly. It is one time I should have quit though. I can understand why your wife listened to his bullshit. The man could be a great coach or a salesman. Running the gym, he would praise clients telling them how he saw improvement and encourage them to work harder. He'd suggest changes to their routine. People loved that. I'd never seen him try to seduce another woman before. I'm not sure he ever cheated on me, and of course he denies he ever did. Gloria explained. Mom apologized for her feelings, but said she is not too upset to hear what happened and our marriage is over. It was just a matter of time until he stepped out on me. She said at least I did not have any kids with the scumsucker. I'm not sure what Jerry saw in me either, she said and blushed. To me it was obvious. She was super intelligent, seemingly compassionate, and sexy as hell. I'm pushy to the point of being bossy. I am driven and want to do my best and want others around me to do their best. It was the way I was raised. Don't confuse that to mean I seek a big income. My dad makes a relatively modest income as a mid-level manager where he works. Mom manages a small boutique. Both thoroughly enjoy their jobs. They raised 2 daughters, and we always had lots of what we called quality time together. Dad once said his definition of success was to have a happy, close-knit family with well-rounded kids. Both my parents pushed my sister and I to try new things. We took dance classes, and I studied the piano while my sister played the guitar. We even took karate lessons for a while. We were encouraged to at least try to play a few sports like soccer and volleyball. The idea was to try everything and see what we liked. Dad was careful to not say too much when I called them with the news about Jerry. I'm sure my mom spoke for both when we discussed it several times over the past few days. Gloria said. She even had a few things to say about you. Me? I said, surprised. I never met the woman. Yeah, but I told her all about you. You are an integral part of the story. Gloria said. I asked what her mother said. Most of it is between my mom and I. Maybe I'll tell you someday. But she analyzed you and your wife the same way I did. I asked her what they came up with. Stacy loves you but does not respect you. We both agree with that. Gloria said. I nodded in agreement that Stacy did not respect me a bit, but I wondered if she loved me at all. Oh, she loves you. She wants your kids. She went to great, even extraordinary efforts to keep your marriage intact. If she simply wanted to cheat, she would have done so and not really cared if you found out. Oh, she'd probably have tried to hide it for a while, and then just said it was too much effort, and eventually left you. Gloria stopped to look me in the eye for a few seconds. I had the impression she was trying to read my mind as she continued. No, she loves you and wants your kids, but part of her thinks you are not good enough for her. She wants an edge over you. You said it yourself the other day. She'd always know in the back of her mind she got one over on you. When you got in an argument, she'd think of that and know she won. That part of the tape where she and Jerry talked about humiliating you after they screwed, that is disrespect to an all-new level. It pisses me off. I laughed and said it didn't exactly make me happy either. Gloria surprised me when her eyes filled with tears. You don't understand. It infuriates me. I want to rip the witch's hair out by the roots for what she planned to do to you. She might not respect you, but I do. Gloria took a few breaths as she held up her hand for me to keep quiet. I gotta say this. I respect you. I did from the first minute we met in that cafe. You had the balls to meet the wife of the man that destroyed your marriage, and you carried yourself with bearing. You treated me with kindness, with respect. I liked it. I liked you. Please, don't say a word and let me finish. Gloria implored. Something about you reminds me of my dad. They say that, for good or bad, girls marry men like their father and men like their mothers. I don't know if that is true. I sure as hell did not with Jerry. But I see some of Dad's characteristics in you. Subtle, but they are there. I told you my mom said a few things to me that I wasn't going to tell you. Gloria said in almost a whisper. She could barely meet my eyes, but at the same time was trying to gauge my reaction. She could tell I was attracted to you. More than that, after a couple times we talked, she told me to be careful to not fall in love with you, as it could lead to disaster. Then she corrected herself and told me to go slow as we both needed time to take care of business and heal a bit before we looked to the future. But I am busting a gut here. She looked at me. I gotta know. Do you like me? I can honestly say I have felt a great deal of guilt over my feelings for you. I admitted. She looked at me shocked and dismayed with maybe more than a little embarrassment in the mix. Something about you made me want to grab you, and, well, I was not sure what. I wanted you, but when I thought about it, I wondered if it was to screw you just to rub Jerry's nose in it like he did me. I had the impression I could do it if I tried. I admitted. Then I realized I didn't care a bit what Jerry thought. I wanted you. And that made me feel guilty on a different level. I was married. Yes, in a toxic marriage, but married nonetheless. It goes against the grain. I'd be violating my own sense of ethics. I paused and hoped my own eyes were not going to tear up. But to answer your question, yes, I like you. No, I love you. I used to tell people Stacy and I were like two peas in a pod. We shared common interests. We just fit well. We shared the same interests. But you and I don't share the same interests. At least we never discussed what we wanted. But I see in you something I've wanted, something I need. Yeah, I like you and I am attracted to you. But it scares the shit out of me. I don't want this to be some rebound thing. I want it to be real. It is too soon. Too fast. Great. Gloria declared. Now, like I so want to do, I can take my time and see how we really do fit. We both began to laugh. Gloria smiled at me a few moments, then said, so if we are going to go slow, so we don't screw things up, can we at least kiss? I nodded, unable to say what I was really thinking. She quickly shifted over and sat in my lap. With a smile, she brought her face close to mine. When her lips touched mine, she shuddered, or maybe it was me who shuddered. But when we came up for air, she had a grin on her face. I'm gonna own you. I'm like one of those old gold prospectors. I'm staking my claim. Oh, and when the gold plays out, move on? I quipped before I thought she might take it the wrong way. She didn't. See, I knew you had a wit, jarhead, she giggled. Nope, I'm gonna reinvest every ounce of gold I find and see my dream come true. But like any business, I'm not gonna overextend myself. And God, don't I want to overextend. I want our relationship built on love and not just lust. Respect has to be a cornerstone, and we are going to have to agree in the middle. Because I am a pushy witch who knows what she wants out of life, just like my mom. Over the next several days, I thought about what Gloria said. To be honest, I thought about little else. I knew I was rebounding from Stacy, but at the same time I realized this was different. I agreed with what Gloria had said. Stacy loved me but did not respect me. Was I that much of a bum? Whatever? She loved me but wanted a better man. I was not good enough. That bothered me. Gloria openly declared she respected me. I somehow reminded her of her father, who I had not yet met. She professed her growing love. I knew I was more than attracted to the woman, which scared me as it made me feel guilty at the same time. I examined my initial impulse of wanting to have sex with Gloria just to show Jerry I could take his woman. I wanted to hurt him like he hurt me. I could do that to Jerry without a second's hesitation. But the thought of hurting Gloria was inconceivable. That thought made me feel like shit. The guilt was overwhelming. Mr. Price did file my divorce paperwork, which immediately separated my finances from Stacy's. She had no job since she was afraid to go back to the gym. She did get half of our meager savings, which basically allowed her to eat and put gas in her car. The need to get legal representation required she call her parents to ask for help. That meant she had to confess we were separated and the reason why. As expected, she did not divulge the full circumstances. Her father called me to chew me out for being an a-hole. Now, I understand your feelings were hurt. She flirted and even went too far with her boss. But she did not actually cheat. Don't you think you should at least try counseling? I asked him what she told him. It turned out she skipped over the whole sex issue. She confessed she had flirted with Jerry and admitted to cavorting around at the competition to work the arm wrestlers into a frenzy. She said she might have had to have sex with Jerry if he won, but I won instead. I was upset and left her. Jerry and his friends came to the house to try to talk me down, and I held them at gunpoint when they got over-aggressive. Yeah, that is obviously over the top, but you guys have been married for a few years. Don't you think that is worth salvaging? Or at least trying? I told him I'd send him a copy of the audio recording of the evening's events, and he could decide or himself if he would try to salvage the marriage. I mailed him a flash drive. 3 days later, he called me back to say he was sorry. He understood. He'd still have to help his daughter try to stay out of jail. By the end of the second week, all parties knew full well I had full audio recordings and would give them out. The two veterinarians were sanctioned and put on probation pending the outcome of their criminal trial. They could technically work but could not touch any anesthetic, which made their job almost impossible. Every female at the gym was told in detail what Jerry had attempted with Stacy. Stokes Fitness fired Jerry to avoid a full walkout. Because they did not have a formal policy against fraternization, I could not sue the company itself. I had not thought of that myself, but my attorney had. It took 6 months before the actual criminal trial for the 7 culprits took place. I thought that was a long time, but was informed it was extraordinarily quick. The local news media had got wind of the case. Because the 6 men were prominent in local business, it garnered even more attention than the typical quick report and forget-it news report. They kept the public informed by offering periodic updates. Somebody kept calling the stations to ask if they had any updates. I have no idea who that might have been. As you might expect, lawyers tried to suppress the audio recordings, which was the cornerstone of the prosecution's case. My own testimony would have been challenged as the rantings of a wronged husband. The 6 guys even tried to press charges against me for holding them at gunpoint. That was laughed out of the DA's office. The consensus was my actions were righteous. The 6 men underestimated Stacy. They knew she was a dumb bimbo, but didn't realize she would turn into a vindictive bimbo. She was upset her marriage had been destroyed. Once her parents realized the men planned to essentially make her their witch, they pushed her to testify for the prosecution. That and her confession she had agreed with their plan to forcibly drug me in an attempt to wipe my memory got her a 2-year sentence with 18 of that suspended. She detailed how the men had planned their assault on me during their drive from Kensington after the competition. They used their cell phones to talk it over between the 3 cars in a conference call. Of course, she did not know what they planned for her, but what they discussed in front of her was enough to bury their butts. I'd have liked to see them go to jail longer as the case progressed, but to tell the truth, at the beginning, I would have been satisfied to watch the wives and girlfriends attack from within. When I called the police, my primary goal was to mess up their relationships as much as they had mine. I had to admit to Hal and a few of my friends that I traded up. After that first time Gloria opened up and told me she was staking her claim on me, I spent as much time as possible with her. She was a rough taskmaster, though. I had gunny sergeants in the Corps that were more easygoing. Of course, none of those gunnies were as pretty or kissed as Sweetly. Gloria made it clear I was doing myself an injustice. The very next semester, at her insistence, I was enrolled in the local junior college. Hal decided if I could do it, so would he. Hal studied criminal justice, and I took general studies, which morphed into an interest in business. Both of us did very well, and by the time the criminal trial hit the docket, we had completed a whole semester with surprisingly good grades. Gloria lined Hal up with one of her girlfriends, Marie. I knew Marie as goon number 3's ex. Like the other wives and girlfriends, she was a spectacular specimen of womanhood. Don't tell Marie any damn stories about Korea, Army, Hal had told me once. Remember, I carry a gun, and she is almost worth shooting my best friend, he added with a grin. While Hal did not need to wait until his divorce was final, I did. Gloria told me she would accept screwing a married man the week after her divorce was final, but I would not renege. She even told her mother when we went over to their house to celebrate we had still not done the deed. Her mother had laughed and kissed my cheek, telling me she was looking forward to when I did and made her a grandmother. I waited the extra week until I got my own decree before I finally took Gloria to bed. It was well worth the wait. After the first 2 days of our honeymoon, most of which we spent in bed and not on the beach in the Bahamas, she told me she had stopped all her birth control months before. I didn't need it since I wasn't having sex. And I want your baby, Calvin. That was another thing about Gloria. She would refer to me as Army when talking with my friends, but when she addressed me directly it was Calvin or Cal. I own you, Calvin, she said several times while we dated, waiting for our divorces to finalize. Our honeymoon night, she grinned and turned around, pulled down the clothes to display her back. Across it read, "Exclusive property of Calvin Bostic." Marie had helped her apply the transfer. I had wondered why Hal, my best man, had been laughing and giggling so much during the wedding ceremony and reception. Marie told me she is gonna get "property of Marie" tattooed on my butt, he said. But if I told you about the transfer, she'd brand it so I didn't forget who was in charge. We both laughed and teased each other about our fates with such great women. Neither of us felt we were hurting a bit. One weekend, Gloria and I stopped by Higgins' restaurant for a quick snack after a visit with my parents. Gloria needed to hit the bathroom as our baby was pressing on her bladder. She waddled to the bathroom while I sat in a booth. Who should come to the table to take my order but Stacy? "Hello, Army," she said in greeting. "I did my time in jail and got my old job back here. I saw the woman you came in here with head to the bathroom." I nodded and told her Gloria was my wife and confirmed she was expecting. "She looks familiar. She was at the trials because she used to be married to Gerald Jenkins. You knew him as Goliath. So you hooked up with her?" she asked. "Yeah, but not until our divorce was final," I said. "I don't cheat. And I not only hooked up, but Gloria and I are married. That's my baby." A different server brought our coffee. "I'll be taking over. Stacy had to step out for a while. Something seemed to upset her," the girl said. "Oh well." Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.